Boom, 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 boom. This is not the right one. That should be up. It should be this one. Not showing up in the Discord, just seeing Twitch. 1 second, I'm investigating it. Star's also telling me about how she is right now. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. This will be the second time this has happened. And I find it very curious that it's happened twice. This is an all-new dashboard. YouTube alerts. Channel is registered. As you know, channel section. Let's out like fucking coffee, Carl. Set tag everyone. Upload video. Upload Premiere. Okay, that's not fixing itself. Interesting. YouTube. My only guess would be that one of the YouTube shards is down. But that doesn't make sense because it was just in the back end. 1 second. Bot's currently showing latency of 525 milliseconds. It shows that it's up. It shows the stats. But for whatever reason, it is not pinging correctly. Like, it's giving test notifications. I don't know. This is curious. Very curious. I'm going to chalk it up to lag. Legitimate lag. Keep your eye on it. Regardless. Fix this for a second. Okay. unless there's something else that needs to be brought to my attention. There's nothing to be, so alright. Press F for my sweetheart's crazy bottom. She is going through it right now, chat. I spare you the details. Alright. Itchy, 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 itchy. Hello, how are you doing? I was not doing great. Insomnia struck. And then retard struck. I just had them all in my fucking bar. Where the fuck did it go? To oblivion, that's where it went. Alright, to restruct the list again. That's okay, that's fine. If we are nothing if not constantly set back. Regardless. Hello, it is 2:08 on a dreary Monday morning. The skies outside have overcast and I have coffee, which means I'm now about to make it everybody else's problem. How are we doing? How are you feeling? You slept off all the soju?
When thinking
about what you're thinking, when you're thinking about what you're thinking, when you're thinking about what you're thinking, when you're thinking about what you be thinking, you be thinking about what you be thinking, what you thinking about what you be thinking, thinking about it, you be think. I will save this for Tuesday. I'm going to save these topics here for Tuesday. But one of these ones we will definitely be going through, which is the most recent of which. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check title. Loan back. 2. This. You're sober within being an hour. Okay. Because I noticed you went home early and well, not went home, you went to sleep early. Hope everything was okay. Ironically, as expected, we actually had exactly enough time for 3 films, so not 4. So, I'm gonna need everyone to put in movies that they would like to suggest for. The ones now would be for November. Yeah, November. No, I'm retarded. We'll have to do another re-up for October and then November. You walk to the store? Oh, okay. Speaking of, did they ever call for your evacuation? Or did they give you all clear? I have to assume they gave you the all clear because you put your computer together and it's still up. Okay. Now, ironically, in the not usual fashion, we're going to actually start with political news first, because as many of you know, I am behind on the times. Not because I wasn't there to witness them, but because I did not speak about them. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, was last week and this week full of fucking news. I'm pretty sure I have, this one is set of body politic. It's not body politic. Yeah, body politic. This, oh, wrong window. This goes before this. 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 That before that. And then this is generally relevant. And that should be good. Alright. I have several news segments. They're going to probably be over the forecast in the next 3 days. Depending on... I need to see. Because more than likely, I may or may not get to visit my partner this week. May or may not. I have no idea. Besides how much I've already gotten to see her. Alright. Let us begin with a little bit of a rejoinder. Playing catch up. Those who have absolutely no context, Carl Benjamin, Sonic God, head boss of Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, gave his own opinion about the fact that Lauren Chen, formerly the Lone Roaming Millennial, before becoming a first name, last name, political commentator in her own right, and had been for years, friend of the channel, Sean Fitzgerald, the actual Justice Warrior, who also has some overcast between myself and Aiden Paladin, was unceremoniously terminated from the platform. Turn this one track down. There you go. Unceremoniously fucking nuked off the platform, because after they were able to create money laundering receipts to claim that she is a Russian asset agent, despite all of the propaganda that can be done from people such as that of Hassan Piker, or Harry Sisson, or Krasensteins, or any political drifter like Dobrovsky, it's so hard to say his name, Dobrovsky. Half of me want to say Dobrovsky, but despite the amount of work done from political grifters amongst the left and the right, somehow the accusation alone is justification for YouTube to terminate Lauren Chen and Tenet Media's channels within a political election year, which does not fall on deaf ears for reasons that do not make logical sense. This goes over here. And on the back of this, we were inundated with a political debate that was hilarious to watch. I happened to watch it through the VOD feed of Rage Fist, and I then watched it again without any commentary from any commentator. And boy, they really prayed that this shit would go well for her. I am not a stranger to debates, not only the debate format or the debate attitude and setting, but also the kind of shit that was going on there. But oh my fucking god, this was a unironic MMA debate cage match. A 3-on-1 where the fucking commentators are doing everything possible to cue her up for backstabs and backstabs and backstabs, but he just keeps giving them body slam after power bomb after body slam after standing fucking tombstone, DDT, spear, Every rejoinder had a clapback. Every joke had a meme behind it. And every single tip of the spear had a zinger. And I think the biggest zinger of the night was because of their desire, for those who have no context, the Harris campaign tried desperately to undo the rule about unmuted microphones. Because people love to say, no, Trump is a fucking gaffer. We're going to take away his ability to gaff on the microphone. But the problem with this is, for those who have any inkling of political strategy and optics, which all of politics is based on, especially in the viewpoint of people watching it with no idea what the fuck they're talking about, if Trump is equal rude when talking and take away muted microphone, what does that mean? It makes him look presidential. Why is that important? Because if you take away Trump's ability to gaff on the microphone, you take away his ability to say mean tweet comebacks, you actually lose the ability to criticize him. And if you lose the ability to criticize him, you lose the ability to fight him. And if you lose the ability to fight him, you lose the ability not only to criticize him, but to be able to claim that he's just a rude, mean, crude dude that does nothing but hurt people. And this makes it extremely hilarious when you really think about it at the highest level of the interaction. Because the funniest gaffes of the night came from Harris desperately trying to get in a body shot on Trump, and Trump giving her a body slam, and then the commentators trying to then interrupt him with the laziest fucking fact checks that are fucking wrong, if not outright abject lies that she's allowed to say over and over and over again, like a good little princess being protected by mommy and daddy, where Trump has to fight to get a response because they want to set it up that Trump says something, Harris gets a response, and then Trump is supposed to just allow the gaffe to sit there, but he has to fight with them to respond. You can hear the fact that her microphone is never muted. That's one of the first fucking problems. And then every single time he's trying to defend himself, he has to fact check things to be able to put it into question. And he was able to put her on margin. Absolutely, he dragged her out into the public. And most of his talking points were on fucking point. Which I hope fucking so, considering that Tulsi fucking Gabbard, the fucking Hawaiian Rouge, was a part of the fucking hand on his prep. And I would hope the woman who body slammed Harris during the fucking primaries would definitely be a part of his biggest wins. And I think the biggest one was him taking her line and her never being able to use this line against him at all for the rest of the night. Because he played the guard first. Let's watch.
In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Don't lie.
She went out. In Minnesota.
Don't lie. Don't lie. Do not lie. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. However, immediately after winning this debate, yet another Trump assassination attempt. The word of the day, chat, is pattern. Trump wins the debate. An assassination attempt is made. Biden drops out after the assassination attempt. Trump wins the debate. He is attempted to be assassinated on a fucking golf course. But unironically, this time we learn all about the assassin, who's apparently a fucking Ukrainian Ministry of Defense asset, who is also a Merc organizer for the feds. On May 4th, 2024, would-be assassin Ryan Routh posted this on his Facebook page, appearing to be from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, with GBG translating it, and Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Military Unit A7788, code EDR POU 266376866, number 1063, May 1st, 2024. 12265 Hodorok Village, Zhytomyr District, in the Zhytomyr region. To head of Ivanko Franskivskis Regional Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, with the written consent. The command of the military unit of the above has reviewed the candidacy of Redacted, born and redacted for military service in the unit A7788 under a contract of position of shooter. Storm Battalion Military A77 of the BOC 100. Military rank according to the staff of soldier. Salary redacted. UAH. I request assistance in processing the documents of redacted and directing them for further military service under contract to Military Unit A7788. Commander of Military Unit, Colonel Vyacheslav Ponomarenko. Seal and signature. And it then comes up that he has a history. Ryan Wesley Ralph, the suspected Trump shooter, the mastermind behind a complex scheme to traffic Afghan refugees using forged Pakistani passports, with these refugees being funneled into Ukraine to fight the war against Russia. As well as... Let me go find this inside the Discord. Or did I put it inside of my bookmarks? I probably put it inside my bookmarks. Excuse me, because there's probably a bunch of porn in there. Probably is Carl. Yes, actually. Unfortunately, this is less about Ralph, because there's plenty of things that are out there. You could probably find the rest of the articles that I have not read here for Googling. But this one, referring back to the debate. Alongside this comes the ABC debate whistleblower documents. The propaganda being on both sides of the party, follow the 6 mainstream media CEOs that own 98% of the news media's money. Need to switch for context. Boom to this one. County redacted. Date September 9th, 2024. Offendant blanked blank being solely sworn. Do I here make the following statement under penalty of perjury. My name is blank. Reside in the blank Manhattan, New York. Worked for ABC News for 10 years in various technical administrative positions. Since the acquisition of the ABC News Network in 1996, I observed significant transformations in the nature of news reporting at the organization, suggesting a shift from unbiased reporting to a model influenced by external factors. I do not endorse Donald Trump in his capacity in the candidate of his President of the United States. Excuse me. The intent of this affidavit is to address concerns regarding perceived biases inside of the news reporting from within my employer's debate, hosted on September 10th, 2024. Furthermore, Harris' campaign imposed restrictions on the scope of questioning, including no questions regarding the health of President Biden, no inquiries related to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco, thus removing from the table the ability for her to be grilled on the very same things that Tulsi Gabbard rammed up her ass. No questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, facing allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds and who may be involved in her administration if elected. I observed a pronounced bias against Donald Trump within ABC News, with employees expressing favorable views towards them experiencing significant concerns about potential retribution concerning internal organization climate. Under the purposes and documentation of the affidavit, this is executed to document and provide transparency regarding the issues of fairness and impartiality in the debate process and the broader concerns about journalistic integrity at ABC News. Affirmance of the documentation being signed and notarized on September 9th, 2024 to ensure the allegations set forth are formally documented prior to the debate between Trump and Harris. In addition to notarizing this affidavit, I have sent a certified letter to myself postmarked on the 9th, which will remain unopened for future investigations. I've also dispatched a Federal Express package, pounding in the pooper, principles are being called into effect here, containing the affidavit on the 9th to be delivered at my residence on the 10th, which will remain unopened for potential investigative purposes. Furthermore, I have sent a letter to Speaker Mike Johnson, dated the 9th, to establish a record that the correspondence was sent before the debate commenced. Additionally, for further investigation, I have secretly recorded several conversations that have proved that the Harris campaign insisted not only on the fact-checking of Trump, but the consistency of what questions were not to be asked under circumstances, or else the Harrison campaign would decline to participate in the debate. Meaning, Harris got her ass fucking whooped! And she still tried to win via arranging it beforehand. alongside trying to undo rules that ABC had already gotten them to agree to, that they set the standard for, that they tried to undo before the debate was to take place, including the muted mics rule. Cough, cough. And as you can see, this affidavit and its marking for the verification of the affidavit match on the dates sent in the two documents. Then from here, from the final two lines being posted, they compare these two lines in these two posts, and it correlates with what was asserted to be made clear. And of course, all of this comes credit of doc.net, YouTube. Black insurrectionists, I follow back true patriots. What does this mean? What it means is that the attempts on Trump's life are going to continue. Namely, because they do not want him to be president. Because they are terrified of losing control. To the point that there are now whistleblowers that are coming up to try and call out the fact that even the debates are attempting to be rigged. So, what do you think is going to happen at these polls? Do you think they're going to stop trying to ram a poll up Trump's backside? I think not. And what's worse is, what are the commentators currently debating? Do you think Hassan's caring about this? Do you think Cranston's caring about this? Do you think any of the political grifters are caring about this? No. Why care about freedom of speech when we instead need to focus on how H3H3 is supposedly a Zionist? And then we need to attack Stardust with tweets from Star about how her face looks. Because they are desperately trying to defend Frogan. It is pathetic. But if it wasn't pathetic, you wouldn't be surprised. And of course, ironically enough, Brad Tate says that he accredits the fact that he can't shut the fuck up to being exposed as a lolcow and being monetized for money. Because him being exposed and monetized for money is helping him shut the fuck up real goddamn quick. Which I guess works out for him. He's still fucking up and he's still doing dumb shit. But I guess he's learning? Question mark? Your mileage may vary on that one. Vice President Harris, how much pineapple juice did Willie Brown drink before he nutted? True. However, a quick aside before we move to the next one. Those who were here in attendance who saw it know that I covered the sus umptod of Blowback. Because good old little Blowback had himself a very horrible time, chat. Boy, when I tell you the abject fucking nothing and all that shit, the boredom, the sheer absolute boredom is palpable. Truthfully, 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 truthfully. But, you know, just to simply go through it, where did I put the links for it? If they're in podcast ideas or in the entertainment? No, I dropped them here. We have a thread from Toastify pretty much breaking down anything that you'd love to know and see and hear about exactly the mind state of BowBlax, who I'm going to start calling Blowback, because boy did he get his back blown the fuck out. Effectively, to TLDR, BowBlax has been trying to get popular, and it's succeeded in getting popular through recounting situations through Twitter spats happening on the platform autistically, while at the same time holding a snake persona where he was attempting to get personal friends to other mutuals by playing both sides of the argument. So the same accusations that they make of Keemstar, which sometimes can be true, but the same accusations that they make of people like Keemstar definitely being followed through by BowBlax. And then Mr. Blowback goes to other people with the intention of trying to win them over to get them to flip. Now, Nick did his own stream, breaking down all his problems with him, but I can't put that to it on air because I am blocked by Nicholas Diorio, because I called him out about him being a fucking shitlib. But Toastifies pretty much breaks down any and everything that you need to know, and there is still that stream there with its VOD up, so you can always be able to go find that on his stream. What the breakdown is, effectively, through the course of all of the time leading up to the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, Blowback was balding, coping, and seething on Twitter because he didn't like that he was being criticized by people and that his screenshots of comments and threads and tweets were being published and archived on top of all the other things of his, namely including a song where he basically sings about some bullshit that he should rather have not done for reasons I don't know what possessed him to do it, and saying, bro, it's acceptable for me to archive tweets, but you can't archive content of mine. Lied and said he took it down not because he was molding, but because he did it by mistake. And then decided to try and expose his friends for not understanding how, because he has the autismo machismo, and his autistic ego, I forget the word that you used, horror, disallowed him from being able to take accountability and hold the L on his own behavior. He then tried to win over two people so that he could try to snake lyrics. This did not work out in his favor. Then he threatened that he was going to go live with a bully stream, breaking down all the bases of how he was in the right and how these things were correct. But actually what it was nearly 2 hours and 30 some odd minutes of him using completely untransformative reusage of lyrics' stream bots to demonstrate some kind of a point about his autistic problems. People were supposed to be promised a live reaction to the words, despite the fact that many of his personal friends in his orbit, including that of the most common, who was also the most based of response, being from Xylee saying, fuck this shit, I'm out, broke down around his head, and as it all came down around his head, he would see to unmod all the people who were mods in his audience on his additional channel, which then led to the chat being taken over by the trolls, and multiple towers of necrosis being erected to the heavens. Black monoliths of huge, big marble. And as we marveled in the shadow of the marble, because it was so big, we saw him autistically sit there trying to fight with people. And every content creator, from his personal friends to people who probably were fans of his, to other people from the sphere of influences of his hobbies, like Sonic, would comment about how this man is coping and seething. And even in my own breakdown on my own stream, we were actually graced, assumptively, allegedly, possibly, remains to be confirmed, by Keemstar himself hearing me break this shit down. And watching it live was a fucking travesty. It was amazing as a travesty, but it was a fucking travesty. He then proceeded to continue his molding, coping, and seething. All of the build-up of the course was covered by Chud Logic, and all of the fallout, as well as myself and others. Most allowed the stream to play uninterrupted, and did not do their own thing, instead waiting until after it was done to break through. But Lyrics himself did indeed do a stream. The next day we then see the stream being done by Nicholas Diorio, and then leads us to where we are here, where everybody effectively now knows that he is an annoying shit splinker. And it was horrible for him. Carl Blowback, or Carl's Blowback Awful Terrible No Good Very Bad Day with extra squirt. All in all, in terms of YouTube drama, this is here today, gone tomorrow. But in terms of the actual coverage and how this basically is the case example, I forget where it was. I didn't save the tweet when I saw it, but assuming I have it in the right order, it was 2019, and John Swan had destroyed his clout and his relevancy to the commentary community. It was 2020, and Flamenco destroyed his relevancy to the commentary community. I'm forgetting one. It escapes me. But it is 2024, and I am witnessing this commentary creator destroying his ties to the commentary community. History repeats. Why is this history repeating? Well, it's because he's autistic, unironically. And his ego disallows him from being held to be criticized, because people were calling for him to be criticized. Oh no, I forgot, Tipster. It was 2023, and Tipster has destroyed his credibility. But did he really have credibility? But no. All this happens over last week. This week, we've had plenty of shit. Technically, the week before last, and then last week. The NAD was one of them too? Okay. All of this happens in the drama and political side of content creation, and yet the gaming side is even more shitty, dripping with the plinkle of raisinets as they're sitting on the toilet trying to crank out this turd. We'll cover that. We'll cover the majority of that news tomorrow. And I also need to reschedule with Mr. Artur, because I told him the 15th, but I did not wake up on time on the 15th. Hit him that DM while I have a chance. Itchy, why am I being tagged in a dev tweet? That is not important to me. 2019 was Lane Ad, 2020 was John Swan. I have the wrong order. 2019 was Lane Ad, 2020 was John Swan, 2021 was Flamenco, 2022 was Edwin, 23 was Tipster, and 24 is BowBlax. Amazing. As I was saying, I need to send a tweet to, or send a DM to Archer. But, picking up, while there is multiple bits of gaming news to coverage, this particular news comes directly from people molding and seething, specifically trying to drum up the Goober Gay bullshit again. This time coming from Gamers of Mars of 2 days ago. Let's put it on the screen. Let's find out. Let's watch it. Alright.
About events that caused the most havoc in internet history, I would say one of the main contenders would be feminist frequency, a crowd-funded YouTube. When thinking about events that caused the most havoc in internet history, I would say one of the main contenders would be feminist frequency.
That's a lie. Damn, already started off with a lie.
When thinking about events that caused the most havoc in internet history...
When thinking about the events that caused the most internet havoc in recency. Inside the video game sector. Lying, cheating, marriages broken, weddings canceled, engagements called off, a man died because a woman lied. His family was gaslighted into believing that he was guilty, despite evidence shows that he was being honey-dicked live by that woman while they were streaming together in Winnipeg while working on his game, or rather, while he was working on her game for her. This woman and the woman that is about to be defended were going to the United Nations to call how they needed to get help about online harassment and bullying. The woman who was responsible for helping launch my career by giving me the opportunity to tell her, Nah, you're fucking wrong. And then getting the fucking slam dunk assistance at the alley-oop from Keemstar himself, leading to the destruction of her platform, and other such opportunities of grifting happening in recency. And you think feminist frequency rising and burning like the Hindenburg is one of the most... Oh, okay, alright. We're all allowed to lie to ourselves, I guess. Not to mention the fact that when the male feminist that stood behind her, puppeteering the talking points jargon right up her ass, separated and did his own thing, his channel blew up faster than hers. You know, but she still bought him in for occasional back shots and cooking in the numbers, you know. It's just what friends do, they rape other dudes. Okay.
I would say one of the main contenders would be Feminist Frequency, a crowd-funded YouTube series that would bring video games...
You love Game from Mars? He and John the King are literally narrators of internet history at this point, so... And yes, it was one of the events that caused a shitstone havoc. In terms of people dying to grifting, yes. No, but yes. That's what I base my opinion around. And I'm not thinking it's the way that it's working, the way that he thinks. Because I'm pretty sure from what I've witnessed of the takes that people have had about it, they have different opinions. But everyone's of the consistent opinion that the thing that she is a grifter. I haven't heard everything he has to say yet. I'll address it as I hear it. But Feminist Frequency existing as a company is responsible for the cooking of the numbers of claiming that they needed to push for DEI in the first place. She is amongst the first to agitate, of course. Anita Sarkeesian herself, just another grifter. Feminist Frequency has a lot more relevancy than that, but you can't talk about the company without talking about the woman. Same way that you can't talk about Alex Walker without talking about Zoe Quinn. Ultimately, money was lost and lies were told in Feminist Frequency, to the fact that she went to Santa Monica herself to admit for the amount of time she said that she was a gamer for years, taking pictures and posing with video games and stealing footage from other channels. She lied, took money, and then escaped to Morocco. Alice Walker's dead because Zoe Quinn fucking lied about him supposedly abusing and grooming her while she was grooming him. So in that mindscape, that's what I judge when I say the worst thing possible. Because Zoe Quinn ain't charged for none of that shit.
To the forefront of the online culture war. Run by Anita Sarkeesian, this unassuming woman would go on to be one of the most controversial faces on the World Wide Web, with claims of collusion and theft still lingering on to...
Well, they weren't claims, they were confirmed, gamer. They were confirmed.
To this very day. But after over a decade, I wanted to ask myself if this vitriol was really justified, which led me down...
Some of it was not, whatsoever. But the claims of money theft and grift, yes. She played damsel and played victim, and then when she was allowed to not play damsel and play victim, and people were supporting her damseling and victiming, she would do things like calling Sargon of Akkad from the stage, from the position of a person on the panel, a garbage human, and take no accountability for any of the things that she was saying or doing. I would definitely put that in the capacity of not getting it. That's what I would definitely do that, yes. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. 100%.
Down an extremely convoluted rabbit hole as I tried my best to take an objective look at the rise and fall of this once online titan. So today, that's what I'm going to do. The daughter of Armenian immigrants, Sarkeesian's parents moved from Iraq to Canada in the 1970s. Her father worked as a computer engineer while her mother was an accountant. Anita was born in 1981 and raised outside Toronto with her older sister. While people have since questioned her gaming background, what I can say for certain is that her family owned an NES, which she played at around the age of 5. When the original Game Boy released in 1989, she begged her parents to buy one. They argued it wasn't a toy for girls, as it was right there in the name. They ultimately relented, even buying a Super Nintendo when she turned 10. Anita's home life was a blend of Armenian and Arabic culture. With her family still having loved ones in Iraq, she got a different view of the first Gulf War. But the differences went deeper than that. When Anita first started school, she could barely speak English. That got her bullied to the point that she never spoke Armenian again. Eventually, she learned to fit in as she moved through middle school. In those years, she tried to live up to her parents' expectations, but changed in high school as she explored the counterculture. The young teen began changing outfits at school to wear things her mom didn't approve of. She listened to grunge and Marilyn Manson. But she was also self-admittedly a bossy kid who had to be the center of attention. This led her to get beat up several times. I didn't fight back. I remember being like, oh, someone's punching me, cover your head and wait till it's over. And then they just got really bored. When she turned 15, her family moved to Orange County, California. It disrupted her entire social life, but she found her crowd at a place they called Hippie Hill. The school wasn't big enough for many cliques, so it became a de facto place for anyone different. Anita got into punk and started abusing drugs, even shaving her head. I was very ragey. I liked anything that was angry. I didn't like anything that was normal. Despite this, she left after a few years, finding that the group was destructive in nature. It was around this time her family got access to the internet. Her father taught her how to build PCs, and she was hooked. I had my own in my bedroom. I was building Courtney Love fan pages on GeoCities. I was learning how to code. By the time she graduated, her immigrant parents' aspirations for her had evaporated. Sarkeesian left home, couch surfing between jobs in several colleges. By 2003, she worked at a hotel and did freelance web design on the side. That year, she enrolled at Santa Monica College, which would end up being a major catalyst in her life. The school was a hotbed for radical ideas and activism. That was especially true in light of the Iraq War. She participated in protests, which encouraged her to dig into political theory. It was a class on intercultural communication that taught her public speaking and audience analysis. She helped organize on issues like climate change and alternatives to capitalism. Ms. Sarkeesian completed her undergrad studies at Cal State Northridge, receiving her bachelor's in 2007. This is when she took interest in performance as a mode of activism. She moved to New York to publicize the work of political action groups. That entailed learning photography and giving them media training. A friend from the time recalled, Anita understood how to tell stories and how to work the media. It's worth mentioning that the labels she'd place upon herself were different in this era. I was one of those feminists who was like, I believe in equal rights, but I'm not a feminist. But she, quote, fell in the wrong crowd and delved into social justice activism.
I sort of joke about how it was the most liberating thing that ever happened to me and also the most frustrating for everyone around me. Because like when you start learning about systems, everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out to everyone all the time. So there's a good year of my life. There's a good year of my life where it was just I was the most obnoxious person to be around.
Shortly after, Anita won a scholarship to the prestigious York University in Toronto. This was the first time her work focused on feminism. It was also at grad school that she drafted up a little idea that would later be known as feminist frequency. But before we go any further into this video, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor today, Golden Nugget Online Casino.
But what if I don't want to give a shout out to your sponsor, Golden Nugget? Brings it all up. The clips. He does indeed have one of the most famous clips of her. Most of the social justice activism comes out of Canada, as we are all familiar to note. I lost the thread full of all the people that was on my timeline of them rebuffing this picture. I should have saved it at the time that I saw it last week. Oh well.
The site she designed to show. The earliest snapshot of Anita's Twitter account shows it was created in November of 2008. It was used to promote a site she designed for CUPE in 3903, the campus's largest trade union. When she had only 11 followers, one of those was a man named Jonathan McIntosh. Macintosh was a
my
well-regarded
good- oh my
artist
gosh,
for his
we're
social
fans
justice
go for
activism. It's
Macintosh.
unclear how he and Anita met, although she wasn't
In a bar. Niki.
a fan of his self-made video remixes. The first post on her newly formed blog, Feminist Frequency, acknowledges that she designed the site's graphics. The Feminist Frequency YouTube channel was created on February 14th, 2009. Her stated goal was to explore media from a fangirl perspective. These early videos were simple, with her talking mostly unscripted and editing them down in post. The first went live in May, with 4 more by the end of the year. Her subjects included Twilight, True Blood, and Veronica Mars. The last was the Bechdel test, a measure of the representation of women in fiction. While the term was broadly understood in academia, she helped popularize it to a wider audience. This video was so big it was even shared by Roger Ebert and received 20,000 views, a pretty decent accomplishment at the time. And this was at its core the intent of her series, taking these concepts and making them mainstream.
I think that popular culture is a common language that we all speak. The poet Muriel Reichsire wrote that the universe is made up of stories, not of atoms, and I really like that quote because I feel like pop culture is one of the ways that we learn about ourselves and the world around us.
In March of 2010, Anita was invited back to Santa Monica College for a lecture. This will come up again later, but for now it's notable for spawning the first video about gaming. As part of her presentation, she created an edit in the style of Jonathan McIntosh's work.
Yes, this is what she presented at Santa Monica College in the famous I am not a gamer, I had to learn a lot about games clip. And then she showed this as representation of what she was focused on. And she got that from her desires to want to be just like Jonathan. Yes, 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 yes. What I find interesting is that she's not showing the part that goes alongside that, which is the I got that from him and I wanted to do this, this, and this, and this with it. Really? Okay, game.
Her next 2 uploads were for Bitch Media's blog Mad World. One video proved controversial for criticizing the game Bayonetta. Anita dismissed the franchise as adolescent fantasy, calling it overly sexualized and pornographic.
First, the positive things about the game. She's a single mother, and that's kind of it.
Her video primarily centered around the game's advertising campaign, which had a billboard that invited passerbys to strip off flyers until the main character was nude. Anita argued it encouraged sexual harassment. The video was bombarded with—
What's that? A video game about a protagonist that is all about how she likes to interact with other people? Her possibly doing something that could be seen as attractive and lewd? No. No, how could that be? Oh no, how horrible! Just have to dry it on the fucking trip.
with dislikes until being set to private. It was her first significant wave of backlash, with the comments changed to require manual approval. That June, she completed her master's degree with a thesis called "I'll Make a Man Out of You: Strong Women in Science Fiction and Fantasy Television." The paper analyzed female protagonists and the problems with replicating what she called stereotypically masculine behavior. Interestingly, Macintosh is thanked in the acknowledgments. With that, she earned a master's in social and political thought. And as she completed her studies, her YouTube channel became more active. While it garnered an audience, she didn't see much growth until a new series called Tropes vs. Women. Throughout 2011, Anita examined plot devices she felt perpetuated offensive stereotypes.
Which they don't, because they are thought processes. And the thought processes that she thought were horrible were things like characters in stories existing and being a female, of which you did not deliver many of these things, which is where the majority of the first scripting allegations come from.
They included the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, Women in Refrigerators, and the Smurfette Principle. Her videos about the Demon Seductress and the Mystical Pregnancy both hit 30,000 views within months. But easily the most popular was episode 6, The Straw Feminist. This criticized what she felt were over-the-top villainous portrayals of feminists in media. She argued they were used to imply we live in a world where gender inequality wasn't an issue. And this video got over 140,000 views, although not all of that was positive. It got enough traction for a rebuttal from the man, the myth, the legend, TJ Kirk, aka The Amazing Atheist. His video titled, "Everybody's a Crybaby," is about several subjects. He begins by mocking people offended by racist Halloween costumes, including blackface.
Halloween costume, like, oh, there's a black chick, and oh, look at this picture of this white girl dressed like a black girl. Oh, that's offensive to me, because it's not a costume, it's a culture.
This leads into his discussion of Anita, or as he calls her, Anna Sarkeesian.
There's a chick, I'm sorry, a female woman, I don't know what they want to be called. She's a feminist. Her name is Anita Sarkeesian. She runs a YouTube channel called Feminist Frequency. What she literally does, she watches TV shows and movies and points out how they're sexist.
This video is so important because Kurt was the first of many to start portraying her as claiming media was corrupting, framing Anita akin to the video games cause violence crowd of the 90s and 2000s. The thing is, this actually wasn't Anita's premise of any of her videos at the time, as her argument is that it reflects harmful views on our society, not that it causes them.
I think it's important to critically engage with video games and comic books and movies and TV shows because it's a reflection of our society.
Whatever the case.
Realistically, it's not that it's a reflection of society, it's a reflection of the society at the time. Saying that you have to do these things puts you in a position where the majority of the things that you're asking for people to concern yourself with makes you feel like that's not useful. Heed. That is unfortunate. Double yield, but it doesn't do much. I would need for this. Fuck me.
It was the first time another creator picked on her show, with many TJ fans hate subbing her channel. It's actually crazy to think about now, but in the early days of YouTube, it was a normal practice for groups to subscribe to channels in mass, just so they'd get a reminder on their feed to dislike their most recent video. The OG form of ratioing, if you will.
Unfortunately, it backfired because most of them started forgetting the actual reason why they were there and started believing their arguments were good. The weakest of which being that you need to constantly criticize things and point things out as a point of critical theory. Realistically, if you're constantly deconstructing and never reconstructing, you're going to ultimately lead to everything you mix and match and make not yielding what you need it to yield, and then making everything that you work towards a fucking farce. But to each their own. To each their own.
It was an early sign of the eventual feud between atheists and feminists. A month later, her channel surpassed 10,000 subscribers. In addition to her output, she moved to San Francisco to lead several creative workshops. She also spoke at the Women, Action, and the Media Conference in LA. The activist was building notoriety, which only grew as she covered broader topics. In early 2012, she released 2 videos criticizing Lego for its gendered marketing. Strangely, this is the time period that Anita and Macintosh claim that they both met each other. This is weird because we have archives showing that they definitively were talking to each other 5 years prior. Regardless of this discrepancy, here Macintosh would say about Anita, she's very personable and friendly on screen and off. She puts everybody at ease, and that comes through on camera. Both videos, as well as her next about the Oscars, got hundreds of thousands of views. By May, her channel boasted over 2.5 million views and 20,000 subs. This is also when she was invited to speak at Humber College. While it's difficult to verify due to a lack of archives, this is when her channel apparently caught the attention of 4chan.
And the more popular I get, the more I get. Like 4chan has found me, and they're atrocious. And they purposely come, like they subscribe to my videos so that they know when one comes out so that they can attack me.
Anita mentions planning a research study about the harassment women face on YouTube. This lecture was filmed in March of 2012, with her idea laying the foundation for a new project, one that would launch her to the mainstream and break the entire internet. While Anita already planned to discuss gaming, it didn't materialize into a bigger concept until her videos about LEGO. They caught the attention of Bungie, the developers of Halo. The company invited her to give a talk at their Seattle office.
And thus was the beginning of the end for Bungie Bros. Brum, 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 brum.
It was her first time at a corporate space about games, so she had to do research with Macintosh. Anita ended up playing many titles she didn't really like and would never have played otherwise. That was reflected on Twitter, where they live tweeted, "I'm in serious video game research mode. Sadly, gotta say many of these games aren't very friendly to women. Been researching the history of female protagonists in video games for feminist frequency. It's honestly making me depressed for humanity." She visited Bungie on March 13th, and now holding a baseline understanding on the subject, she left with ideas on how to explore gaming further. It was also at this time that the concept of crowdfunding projects hit the mainstream. So I had this format that I liked with Tropes vs. Women, the original series, and I kept hearing about this thing called Kickstarter. If I'm going to do it, I might as well try to get paid a little bit. And with that, Anita launched her campaign on May 17th, setting a goal of $6,000. She promised 5 videos, with each focused on a different reoccurring plot device. It was funded within 24 hours, with the earliest snapshot showing over $9,000 from 344 backers. This is important because its success predates any backlash. In fact, she raised over $17,000 before promoting the project on YouTube. That proves there was enough interest for it to succeed without any of the controversy. The outrage didn't begin until after one seemingly mundane upload on June 4th, 2012.
Have you ever noticed that, with a few notable exceptions, basically all female characters in video games fall into a small handful of cliches and stereotypes? I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I run the video web series Feminist Frequency.
The video was
Oh, damn, that was music from fucking The Enchanted Cave 2. Ah, flashback.
Immediately flooded with dislikes by a larger wave than ever before. Within days, there were over 10,000 negative comments, until she finally disabled them on June 16th. What's interesting is, unlike previous videos, these messages weren't set to manual approval, so the whole world could see them. The description states, "I have left the comments open on this video as a way of showing why this topic is so important. Don't feed the trolls, except maybe to thank them for proving to everyone that sexism in gaming is indeed a huge problem." This
yes, the famed line.
implies they were intentionally left on as bait, becoming the basis of a blog post 2 days later. These are the types of silencing tactics often used against women on the internet who dare to speak up. Things only intensified, resulting in a second post on June 10th. This coordinated attack has included attempts to get my accounts banned. A torrent of hate on
The coordinated attack for people to leave criticism? I mean, I guess.
YouTube, plus countless threats of violence, death, sexual assault, and rape. As part of that intimidation effort, the Wikipedia page about me was vandalized with misogynistic language, pornography, and racial slurs. In hindsight, something I can't shake the feeling of is that Anita knew what she was doing here. Given her previous
No shit, she knew what she was doing.
media training, she likely knew how to leverage the negativity to her favor. It would also make sense given her previous idea of a research study. But of course, that doesn't justify some of the insane comments being left about a series that didn't exist yet, especially one already funded by her own audience. The story first got coverage from gaming outlets like GameSpot, Kotaku, and Rock Paper Shotgun, spreading until reaching The Guardian. It quickly sparked a wider debate over if and how the community should change. Her Kickstarter ended on June 17th, raising over $150,000.
Well, aside from the reaction of the general public so far, which makes it kind of seem like you've done more harm than good for females. How about that?
While many were already shocked, it was only going to escalate. Anita was targeted with DDoS attacks and attempts to hack her account. They tried to dox her but were unsuccessful. A wide variety of memes circulated, and many using offensive derogatory imagery. This led her to make a third post on July 1st about image-based harassment. It emphasized the degrading and often pornographic images made to intimidate her. It once again got media coverage, getting her on CBC radio. But that paled in comparison to what happened next. 4 days later, a user on Newgrounds published Beat Up Anita Sarkeesian. This flash game allowed you to simulate punching the feminist until she had black eyes. Its description ironically accused her of ignoring constructive criticism. The headlines wrote themselves, with an easy-to-point-to example of gamers' unhinged hatred. It was covered by the New Statesman again, quickly disseminating to other outlets to highlight online harassment. The trolls turned her into a martyr, garnering sympathy from the public at large. Anita was subsequently invited to EA Dice, the devs behind Battlefield and Mirror's Edge. She even held a TEDx talk about the response.
So I'm no stranger to some level of sexist backlash. I've sadly gotten used to sexist slurs and sexist insults, usually involving kitchens and sandwiches. But what happened this time was a little bit different. I found myself the target of a massive online hate campaign.
Feminist Frequency ended the year with 36,000 subscribers, and Macintosh and Anita got right to work, purchasing over 300 games for their research. While much of the backlash at the time was surface level, there was some more valid criticism. When her video on Bayonetta resurfaced, many felt it was obvious she never played the game. There was also a tweet that implied she was in favor of race-segregated classrooms. I've actually read many studies that state the opposite, that gender-segregated classrooms improve learning, same with race. It's worth emphasizing that the story of her trip to Bungie wasn't yet well known. Many questioned her intentions with approaching video games at all. The first of its kind came from a channel called Instigative Journalism. Part 1 examines the activist's master's thesis. Anita argues in it that strong female characters still aren't feminists because they're only pretending to be men. The YouTuber points out contradictions in her categorization of masculine and female traits. This is used to infer a framework for the future of her career.
She only cares about TV shows because that's all she actually watches. She's remiss to touch anything unless Joss Whedon is somehow related. She doesn't do original thinking or research and is satisfied with referencing and leaning on the things that she was taught in class. And when claiming to analyze or examine subjects, she pigeonholes them under archetypes instead of judging them holistically and matches them against a checklist of her feminist paradigm.
Part 2 scrutinizes her personal brand of feminism. It's important to recognize many of her views on sex and violence are not intrinsic to the movement. There are many opposing views within feminism that never get acknowledged in her videos. For example, sex positivity. The only time she addressed this was in a blog post criticizing the slut walk. Anita disagreed strongly enough to feel alienated within the movement. By ignoring the variety of thought, she presented her view as synonymous with feminism, when that wasn't the case. This was one of the many genuine critiques she never responded to. There's no such thing as sexism against men. That's because sexism is prejudice plus power. Men are the dominant gender with power in society. Ignoring all of her crazy trolls that could never be justified, a more nuanced view of feminist frequency at the time was that there was no way to express criticism of some of her polarizing views without being grouped into the harassment. The only criticism she ever responded to were things that were easy to dismiss, with journalists never pushing back and acting like a PR team for the YouTuber. This limited how productive a wider conversation could be. You were either with her or against her. Again, that isn't to justify everything that happened to Anita, but it explains why things escalated the way they did. It didn't help that around this time, the atheist community declared war on feminists. With Elevator Gate a year
and then it was immediately taken over with Atheism
a
Plus.
scientist known as Thunderfoot Online posted a video titled, "Why Feminism is Poisoning Atheism."
The problem is that many in leadership positions have managed to get themselves bullied or cajoled into this bullshit PC appeasement position by people who are conspicuous in that they proudly label themselves as feminists. Folks who find t-shirts like this offensive enough to reduce them to tears.
It's interesting that around this time, all the online atheists switched from complaining about fundamentalist Christians to feminists. It laid the groundwork for the eventual wave of skeptics and anti-SJWs that would build a right-leaning community that included a lot of the conservative Christians the atheists used to complain about. By early 2013, Sarkeesian launched a Tumblr for her series, and a month later released the very first episode of the crowdfunded Tropes vs. Women in Video Games. The first episode of the Kickstarter-backed campaign was released on March 7, 2013, called The Damsel in Distress. It was briefly taken down after a false flagging campaign, but quickly reinstated. Within hours, TJ Kirk uploaded Who's the Damsel Now? He admits it was more even-handed than her previous videos, but called on Miss Sarkeesian to face her critics and stop playing the victim.
And I honestly have no major criticisms of its content. I do, however, take issue with one aspect of Anita's video, the fact that she has disabled ratings, comments, and even statistics. We, the audience, are not allowed to have an opinion, it seems.
5 days later, Thunderfoot uploaded his first rebuttal to Anita, Feminism versus Facts.
I mean, really, did you have to start with the straw man in the title? Do you really think that tropes are specifically adversarial to women? Maybe I should title this video in a reciprocatively fair fashion. Maybe something like Feminism versus Facts.
This may very well be the origin of the idea behind facts don't care about your feelings. Watching with 10 years of hindsight,
Probably not.
this video strawmans her arguments. Thunderfoot claims Anita's noticing trends that don't exist, but that's despite the trope's very long history across literature and film. He implies Double Dragon Neon isn't a valid example because it ends with a damsel punching the villain in the nuts. Her argument is that it's a plot device that happens to characters and doesn't necessarily define them.
The problem is that the use of it is being used as something that can only exist within the framework of something that's written by men. She is saying women have no agency because this is how society sees women, because men in society see women like this, and they refract their behavior onto their work. That they are abusive to the people in their lives in ways that are subversive through everything that they do and intrusive in everything that they do, say, create, critique, blah, 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 blah. And the problem is that that's a critical theory. And when the critical theory gets down to its basis, it literally becomes, I don't like these people because these people make me feel uncomfortable, because I don't like the fact that I've been made to feel unwelcome in my own space and mind and head space. Which is dumb, because all writing is meant to challenge the reader, because the reader is supposed to be capable of dealing with it. And Anita's entire basis comes from the deconstructive nature of feminist literature and theory as put forth by the most atrocious of users, demonstrating a willingness to put feeling and concern over understanding. And all of it comes from people not being serious with their mindsets and their outcomes when concerning the criticism that a person can have. And the unwillingness to address that is why people criticized her the most, though there are those who did so specifically because they hated her. And that's unfair. Why can't you let me some of water? I want to sail in my water.
This symbolic performative gesture isn't a strong counter-argument to that.
Remember, the damsel in distress plot device is something that happens to a female character, and not necessarily something a character is from start to finish.
I want to clarify that Tropes vs. Women in Gaming isn't a perfect series either, which we'll explore later on. There are also premises I can see people taking issue with because they're simply treated as accepted fact.
The belief that women are somehow a naturally weaker gender is a deeply ingrained socially constructed myth, which of course is completely false. But the notion is reinforced and perpetuated when women are continuously portrayed as frail, fragile, and vulnerable creatures. The gender binary is an entirely artificial and socially constructed division of male and female into two distinctly separate and opposing classes of human being.
But they're not, though, Anita. They work with each other, and that's why that point was extremely stupid. But it's okay. We're all aware.
As I watched these videos for my research, I realized that they weren't that outrageous and pretty benign media analysis overall. This shouldn't be surprising, since Anita has explained that unlike previous videos, which were much more off the cuff, these were much more intentional. They're rather adept at anticipating and addressing counter-arguments.
This series
But they're not. Come on.
will include critical analysis of many beloved games and characters, but remember that it's both possible, and even necessary, to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that all games that use the damsel in distress as a plot device are automatically sexist or have no value.
This was lost on many people who came away thinking this.
I mean, Jesus, girl, you are one sick puppy. So in your mind, if my girlfriend gets abducted, I can't want to protect her or to keep her safe without turning her into an object. I mean, really, by your feminist reasoning here, hospitals, the places where patients come to be acted on, are actually objectification centers where people are turned into merely objects to be acted on.
Thunderfoot's first video on the subject garnered over 1 million views, spawning the profitable industry of anti-Sarkeesian and later anti-feminist content. The gaming industry...
him making a video doesn't spawn that. People seeing something that can easily be debunked and then spoken against would cause that. Emphasis on cause, air quote.
On the other hand, largely stood by Anita, with veteran Cliff Blazinski speaking out at Kotaku. He defended tropes-based games' right to exist and said gamers need to, quote, grow up. If by watching Anita's videos, I, as a developer, can reconsider how I depict women in any future product of mine, then her work may very well be worth it. This belief was echoed by writer Anthony Birch and game designer Tim Schafer. On April 5th, a student uploaded a recording they took when Anita spoke at college. During the Q&A, they read off a letter stating her trolls didn't represent gaming as a whole.
With the past the net, I don't think talking about video games is going to help the people. I propose that we promote the positives like we've done so today, because the negative will only attract more negative responses.
On April 18th, Anita appeared on CNN.
And what I wanted to do, or what I hope to do by telling my story, is to create a space where people take online harassment more seriously. There's a misconception that what happened to me is trolling. And trolling is largely thought of as one individual who's trying to get a rise out of another individual. What happened to me was really a cyber mob, right? It was thousands of individuals coming after me who were loosely working together.
Thunderfoot responded by stating he had faced far more harassment.
In fact, a quick search for images of you online shows that the internet has been far kinder to you than it has been to me.
On May 28th, Anita released part 2 of The Damsel in Distress. It was once again taken down after being false flagged. This received even more rebuttals from Thunderfoot and TJ Kirk. What's fascinating is they're often arguing against points she isn't making, by saying the exact same thing as she states in the video. To give an example of this, TJ points out many plot devices are only used out of convenience rather than intentional sexism.
And of all the reasons that a character might embark on a quest, saving or avenging a loved one is probably the easiest to convey quickly. I think that is the reason for the damsel in distress trope. I don't think it's designed to denigrate women. I think it's just an easy plot device.
And this is what she states in her video.
Despite these troubling implications, game creators aren't necessarily all sitting around twirling their nefarious-looking mustaches while consciously trying to figure out how to best misrepresent women as part of some grand conspiracy. Most probably just haven't given much thought to the underlying messages their games are sending. And in many cases, developers have backed themselves into a corner with their own game mechanics.
Kirk,
that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. You think that sounds like the same thing, but that's not the same thing. What TJ said there was they're not doing this shit that you claim out of the desire to make people look bad. They're doing it because they're lazy writers, and that's the easiest thing they've consistently continued to do. You said they wrote themselves into a box because of the sexism that is inherent in not respecting the other gender. Let's listen to it again.
Most probably just haven't given much thought to twirling their nefarious-looking mustaches while consciously trying to figure out how to best misrepresent women as part of some grand conspiracy. Most probably just haven't given much thought to the underlying messages their games are sending.
giving thought to the underlying messages that the games are sending. The underlying message of a plot device that inside of the context of the story makes sense, but then when used with theory to justify how it fits into a grand narrative where people are intentionally misrepresented while you're accusing others of misrepresenting you, is quite literally a game of duck, duck, goose. But when you're it and get tagged on the head, you blow up because you've been accused of rapid misogyny. And the only creative choice and the only creative outset that corrects the problem is your immediate destruction. Because how could you say that? How could you think that? How could you use that?
And in many cases, developers have backed themselves into a corner with their own game mechanics.
Kirk then says that because most devs and gamers are male, it's only natural their views are most prevalent. But that doesn't negate the value of examining why that is.
It's that way because they would come from a sector of business where, since it's male-dominated, the men are going to write what they know, which then gives enough credence that you would, and you should, definitely have the assistance of women help with that writing, but you would not use that as the way to say that they're evil, monstrous bigots that simply don't want women to have a voice, which is unfortunately what Anita definitely suggested was being done explicitly, which is why the industry would then pivot to having more female designers, and those female designers would go on to demonstrate a lacking ability to actually design, well, anything of meaning. Not because people hated them, but because there are many that did it because they wanted to be in the crowd and amongst the numbers, rather than somebody making something that was good. They wanted to be able to break the mold, break the glass ceiling. And what did that leave us with?
Many critics argue her series ignores the context behind specific characters and scenes, calling it dishonest. Her position is that the excuse for using a trope doesn't itself justify a trope's use. You don't have to agree with this, but at least understand what you're trying to refute in her videos. Anita is also very clear that individual games aren't harmful on their own. It's
the trend of the games. It's not what we're saying, it's the way we're saying it.
The broader cultivation effect that perpetrates harmful views.
And taken on their own, each individual example we've covered in this episode might seem relatively benign or trivial. But the reason this series focuses on tropes is because they help us recognize larger recurring patterns.
Kirk calls this contradictory, arguing she's picking and choosing when context matters. Thunderfoot summarizes her argument as, video games make people sexist.
I'll make this simple for you, Anita. Really, really simple. You can claim as a hypothesis all you want that women not being portrayed as you want in video games is making society misogynist. Hell, the people who claim that video games make people more violent have a far better case than your claim that they make people sexist.
Again, she explicitly states otherwise, believing that they reinforce pre-existing views.
How does it help that it supposedly reinforces pre-existing views? The same way that somebody says a man having bad luck in life means that it would reinforce his views on sexism. He would have first had to learn it from nature versus nurture. Then the suggestion that because it's being paid for and bought in summary justifies the reason why you would have companies destroy their portfolios of money because, listen bro, the fact that this man is an incel and then plays our video games is the reason we need to destroy any ability for us to make money with the WB series video games under Detective Comics works, because you see the IP is just rampant with misogyny and bigotry. That's why it needs to be filled with Reddit chud jokes. Because we're protecting the soul of Americans!
Likewise, engaging with these games is not going to magically transform players into raging sexists. We typically don't have a monkey-see, monkey-do direct cause and effect relationship with the media we consume.
But
Cultural influence works in much more subtle and complicated ways.
On August 1st, Anita released the third and final part of The Damsel in Distress. It included her idea for a hypothetical game called The Legend of the Last Princess. Taken out of context, many were under the assumption that she felt these were the only types of stories that should exist. But that's removing the nuance present in these videos.
Now, I'm certainly not arguing that all stories must include completely fearless, hyper-individualistic, heroic women who pull themselves up by their bootstraps and never need anything from anyone. Of course, there is absolutely nothing wrong with offering or occasionally needing assistance. It only becomes a problem when acts of altruism are repeatedly presented in heavily gendered ways.
Meanwhile, a page was created about her on Encyclopedia Dramatica, as more and more creators stood against the feminist writer. Anita would end up giving a talk at an event called The Conference, elaborating on the false flagging campaign. This slide includes a screenshot of a user that went by the name of Mundane Matt, who said, "The internet is finally striking back. Keep fighting, keep flagging." He celebrated the appearance on his own channel.
The Boulder Boy.
Among these new detractors was Jordan Owen, who began researching her past. This culminated in a video titled Anita Sarkeesian, The Early Years. Tensions would heighten even more in gaming discourse when Jordan Owen, an early face in the skeptic YouTube community, was tipped off with the new intel by a source familiar with both Anita and Macintosh in 2013. The user sent several links, which he made public. The first was a testimonial the feminist host did for a program called Teleseminar Secrets. The course was run by internet marketing guru Alex Mandoshan. It basically taught you how to run a multi-level marketing scheme. Her endorsement was uploaded in 2007. Now, some would argue, given the nature of the scam, she was the victim and not a perpetrator. However, in the video,
but she should know better.
Promotes her own website called neonandchrome.com.
Hi, my name is Anita Sarkeesian. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and my website is neonandchrome.com.
The earliest snapshot advertises internet marketing services with a specialty in teleseminars. Anita's next connection in this leak was to a handwriting expert called Bart Baggett. Her old site lists being a seminar manager/coordinator for Baggett 13 times. The man also did a testimonial for Mandoshan in 2007. And the funniest part of all is that he was featured in a pickup artist directory, which led many to call Anita a fake feminist. Now, while it's true she worked for Baggett, he clarified that the seminars she helped with were self-help oriented and attended by older women. The statement was provided to a journalist investigating her past, and the author admits there was even less evidence of a relationship to Mandoshan. It's ultimately kind of a nothing burger of a story, but since people always are calling Anita a con artist with this being the origin of the claim, I felt the need to include it in the video. In this expose, the final person Owen scrutinizes is her connection to Jonathan McIntosh. You see, Jonathan's Flickr proved he was an activist while he still did teleseminars. He speculated the man gave her the feminist vocabulary she was missing, with the two first interacting in December 2007.
Subsequent photographs that I won't share here depict food that John has prepared for Anita, and John and Anita visiting her parents, indicating that he is most likely her boyfriend.
Owen goes on the rails after this, accusing random cosplayers of encouraging pedophilia for some reason.
Why isn't John decrying this like everything else, especially when we see his photograph of highly sexualized Care Bears? Where is the finger wagging about how this is sexualizing children's entertainment and encouraging pedophilia?
The biggest takeaway from this video is that it began the discourse that Macintosh was behind the feminist frequency's views. Anita responded, calling it utter nonsense, before bizarrely accusing them of victim blaming. It's hard to dismiss this claim, though, as by her own admission, she didn't consider herself a feminist until 2007, which is when she first met Macintosh. Her explanation is that while living in New York, she met activists who had been marginalized by male protest leaders. But this claim comes out of the same interview, which misconstrues when she and Macintosh actually met. This was only the beginning, with her credentials as a critic soon being called into question. The first hit to her credibility was the discovery that she used other people's gameplay without credit. The majority was taken from a channel called CubeX55. When notified, CubeX said she never asked for permission, but it should be noted that gameplay footage isn't owned by the person that played the game, making this point moot.
No, it doesn't. When you steal my footage, and you don't record footage of your own, and you're not willing to call out where you got the footage from, it implies that you did the work and the effort yourself when you in fact did not. Now, this can be moot if you played the game and then can demonstrate you know what you're talking about, but it does make it look bad. It's the equivalent of saying that you know the material that's a part of a class project, and even though you were not the person who created the majority of the presentation, you can be able to talk about it. It just looks bad. So, you would still review it yourself. You would still record footage yourself. You would still get things yourself. And that would be the thing that would matter the most. By Anita stealing other people's footage, on top of being a person with not a very strong background in gaming, of which this is the problem with people using the word gamer incorrectly. When they say gamer, they mean no-lifing video games. Those of us know what I mean by that, because I am no-lifing video games. When I play video games, I can disappear into them for 6 to 16 hours at a time. When people like Anita Sarkeesian play video games, even if they're only playing them for maybe 6 to 8 hours, if they are somebody whose job is video games, to somebody who could play whatever time they have available to play the video game, because they don't have more time than what they already do, this is where the discaf comes from. Because realistically, the way people use gamer is to say hardcore veteran, and that's not accurate. But of course, that's on intention by most of the people who are doing so in wild regard. It's all over the place, and everybody's responsible for being a part of the problem, in my opinion. Accountability has to be taken by those who are responsible for that, but the less said about that, the better. The less said about that, the better. Still, the ultimate point is, no, it isn't moot. She is supposed to be capable of covering the work herself, and she has to be capable of being able to give the background and the knowledge of the work herself. So if she steals somebody's effort and she doesn't credit them, it is a problem. Because this would be during the time period where if you did not credit things like this got your channel seen as a crook. And her not being treated like a crook is a problem. Because she deserves the criticism, and if she doesn't get the criticism, that's a problem. A very big problem.
Regardless, it was still used to infer she didn't actually play the games she criticized, meaning she was.
But many of the games that she was criticizing, she absolutely did not play. She either didn't play them and didn't understand the actual mechanics of the game in question and made horrible assertions based on it, like, you know, claiming that you're being rewarded for killing prostitutes when you're actually being penalized by the score system. Because in Hitman, you're not supposed to kill anybody other than your fucking target. And doing that marks demerits.
Wasn't a true gamer girl.
How do you feel about video games?
I still love them. I think games are really where we're going. That I'm excited to see what happens as the culture grows up.
Video games are so interesting and engaging and interactive. I'm a gamer and I enjoy games.
Then a clip surfaced from a lecture she gave in 2010.
So it's not.
There it is! There it is!
Fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this.
All of these discoveries in tandem painted the image of an ideologue that only came to games cynically. For many, it was a reason to dismiss her opinion entirely.
Why are you attacking her? Are you afraid of her opinion? No, I don't give a shit about her opinion. She's a f***ing con artist. That makes me dismiss her opinion to begin with. Alright? You want to bring up the issue of sexism in games, you better find somebody who's got a little more credibility to do it.
The outrage included videos from both Mundane Matt and the Internet Aristocrat, better known as Jim. The latter's video wasn't just about
excuse you.
Anita, but a wider issue he noticed on the internet drawing comparisons to the atheism community.
And so you've got, that's a separate example. That's kind of what's happening with video games. You've got these political commentators, these people with his agenda that are shoving it into games for no reason, right? And they're a problem, but what allows that to happen are the people that support them.
Jim chastised anyone who still defended her, which he saw epitomized in gaming journalism.
And it's not a minority opinion. It's almost, it's almost 50-50. And that's the craziest part about this. I mean, right now in the industry, we have a few crucial problems. One of them is the journalists. And I'm doing air quotes around that because half of the people who write for video game websites don't have journalism degrees.
The fake gamer allegations weren't going away, forcing her to once again respond on Twitter. Ever since I began playing video games at the age of 5, I've been told I don't belong. As a result, my relationship with gaming has been complicated. Like many women who game, there have been periods in my life when the constant sexism and alienation have become almost too much to handle. I've had a love-hate relationship with gaming over the years. I've even taken breaks, but I've always come back hoping it would get better. In hindsight, I think a lot of this comes down to Anita's own disconnect with what a gamer means. I can relate since I'm called the gamer from Mars but haven't played through a video game in over 2 years. To many, it's a term that invokes a clear subculture, while to others, it's about playing any video game. Think about the internal divide between those that are hardcore and casual. Many have pointed out she would have
And there's my point.
never played most of the titles in her series if her research didn't demand it. That's a valid point and something she's admitted herself. But the thing is, I'd argue most gaming YouTubers play games they wouldn't in their leisure, as that's often part of the job.
There's a slight difference though. She's doing so for a political bent to try and make a point, which ultimately then gets used in the pursuit of monetary gain. Both could be accused of the same, but some would be able to demonstrate, oh no, my opinion is definitely to be bought and sold based on whether or not your game is good. She's doing so for the good of all hearts and people and creativity. And that is where it falls to the wayside. It's kind of hard to say that you're doing this for the good of all chuds and chudettes, when at the same time you have the audacity to say, hey guys, I am one of you. But you know, you need to just start dealing with these problems. You're capable of criticizing it without acting like a fucking shit say it sprinkler. You're acting like a shit say it sprinkler. Then, while doing that, and pushing the critical theorem, you seem to forget that your love of it is supposed to be helping you. Treat it well. Not how you're treating it here. Which is part of the problem. Not the problem. Because if you only like it because it does things for you that you want, then you're not truly appreciative of gaming. You're a gamer in the sense that you play games, but you're not a gamer in the sense that you are a part of that shared culture. Because it does share a culture. I can't passionately dig into a topic with somebody who has no background in something like Path of Exile if they have no background in it. And I certainly couldn't be able to talk about the medium in general if that person who has no background in that also most definitely doesn't have anything that can put them on the level of knowing what I know. That's not to flex my knowledge or to make them feel like they should be left out. It's just they either know or they don't. And if they don't know, I cannot share with them on any serious level comparison that makes me feel like they are truly welcome. That's just how that goes. It's not a problem, it's just how that goes. The way that we're making it sound is we're making it sound devious. It's not devious. Completely legitimate. Making it sound like it's illegitimate.
So it's important to note that realistic-looking first-person shooters and other games that employ graphic violence and sexist imagery are not the only games out there, even though they do tend to get most of the attention when it comes to talk of serious gaming. Because I'm often frustrated with the male-dominated, blood-and-guts, testosterone-driven shoot-'em-up games that seem to dominate the Xbox and PS3 platforms. Having so many...
So you would just not play them, and you know, that's how that works. You say they're not my bag, and you move on with your life. Instead of what you've chosen to do, which is instead of saying they're not my bag, is saying no, you can't platform those. No, and that's crazy.
Creative, simple, intuitive, and non-traditional games available right in our pockets has really helped bring gaming to a wider range of people, including to more women, who may have never considered themselves gamers before.
Her view is that she enjoyed gaming, but not enjoying those games drove her away from saying that she was a fan. If you asked me at the time, I would probably have said I wasn't a gamer. I don't even know if I want to say that now, but whatever. It seems like one of her goals with the series was to encourage games that didn't fall into these categories.
I want to make absolutely clear that I am in no way saying that games that involve violence are always bad or have no value. What I am saying is at their best, video games can promote problem-solving skills, critical thinking, creative mathematics, and confidence building.
Now, there are still valid reasons to raise this point. It's a bias that's affected her work, resulting in a misleading or inaccurate portrayal of certain genres. This is important,
which is a
when she
problem.
presents herself as an authority. I mean, Tropes vs. Women was released with a classroom curriculum. That really matters for material intended for educational use. But I don't think it necessarily invalidates all of her points. The problem is, once again, she wasn't receiving mainstream pushback. When Anita visited DICE, rumors circulated she was hired for input on the sequel to Mirror's Edge. This was debunked, but not before a petition against her involvement got 54,000 signatures. It's unsurprising her supporters remained uncritical. It served to start a conversation, which even reached Shigeru Miyamoto, who would say, "Certainly I don't think that video games are the only genre that portrays things that way. And maybe it's just because I'm a male, I haven't given it a lot of deep thought over the years." This quote encapsulates another funny theme of the culture war. While Westerners were fighting over representation in Japanese games like Mario, the Japanese simply seemed disinterested and continued to do whatever they felt like, making all of this seem kind of pointless.
Because it is pointless. Because they don't have that identitarian problems in the same pervasive culture of their nation as we do in ours. And of the blick over from America to America Light. Because they care a lot about the representation of the minority, down to the second smallest factor, whereas they care about representation as nationalists. Because they don't hate their countries. Or the people in them. Kinda goes a long way, bro.
In March 2014, GDC honored Ms. Sarkeesian with the Game Developers Ambassador Award. It was presented by Neil Druckmann, the head of Naughty Dog.
She loves video games. She's so passionate about them that she feels they're worth fighting for.
Oh, is this you, sir? You who care so passionate about them that when you wrote your keynote speech in 2013, you talked about how you hated the female protagonists of the past, and the only way to change that for the better was to destroy them? Yep, you and her love video games, bro. You love them so much, you deplatformed one of the best female writers in the fucking industry from the company that she helped build from the ground fucking up after moving from Crystal Dynamics. Yes, sir, I believe you. I believe you. I believe you.
It is my honor to present the Game Developers Ambassador Award to Anita Sarkeesian.
This was misportrayed as her being given the Gaming Luminary Award, which would have put her on the same level as Miyamoto. Notch, the creator of Minecraft, believed this and called GDC out for being terrified of social terrorists. The conference even received a bomb threat demanding that they take back her award. The division only intensified as things continued to escalate. The possibility of any sensible discourse was lost. Angry Joe saw backlash after defending feminist frequency in his list of the year's gaming controversies.
And this next thing is gonna blow your f***ing mind. Trust me, many feminists f***ing love sex.
Anita was causing a giant stir, but soon she would release a new episode of her show that would cause the largest backlash to date. In June 2014, Anita released Women as Background Decoration. This proved to be her most controversial video, with her infamous discussion of Hitman Absolution. To be fair, I think the first half of this upload is fairly well articulated. Anita discusses what she calls non-playable sex objects, taking issue with how many titles portray sex workers. This leads into her argument for why objectification is different in video games due to its interactability.
These active viewing mechanics encourage players to collaborate with developers in sexual objectification by enabling gamers to scope out and spy on non-playable sex objects.
Where she starts losing the plot is when discussing its connection to violence. Anita argues that in many open-world or sandbox-style games, devs enable players to directly abuse non-playable sex objects.
Players are meant to derive a perverse pleasure from desecrating the bodies of unsuspecting virtual female characters. It's a rush streaming from a carefully concocted mix of sexual arousal connected to the act of controlling and punishing representations of female sexuality.
The issue with this point is that Hitman actively discourages players from what she asserts, with her own footage showing them being penalized. By the time you reach that mission in the game, it's apparent killing anyone except your target will jeopardize your actual mission. Her argument extends further to GTA, alleging players are incentivized to murder women because they drop bundles of cash. But these are general functions of any NPC. The same applies to her idea of disposability. It's true for any NPC regardless of gender. Now, where I'll differ in my criticism is that I don't think she was intentionally lying here. Her position is that the ability to make this choice at all is worthy of examination, regardless of gender.
Typically, all the non-essential characters in sandbox-style games are killable, but it's the sexualized women whose instrumentality and brutalization is gendered and eroticized in ways that men never are.
It's true most are in...
So, the easy criticism there, Anita, would be, then do it to the men too. Sexualize the men, and now it's equal. And that's what many of the games originally used to do, until you said, no, only the men, never the women. In which case it became, oh, you just don't want to see the women because women have it worse. The Church of Women Worshipping, at its best. But, you know, we're talking at Ghosts.
Inviting you to objectify them while committing violence. But this, if anything, is a consequence of the engine. If a game is set in a strip club, should there be specific rules so that you can't injure the strippers?
Yes, because it's sexism if you don't do it that way.
Ridiculous tangents that
Yes,
only
sir.
weaken her argument further.
If caught by the police, the screen will fade to black, and 5 seconds later, your character will be standing outside the police station, minus a few dollars or items, but free to go about your business as if nothing happened.
The focus on these otherwise generic mechanics just isn't...
You heard it here first, boys. When you get arrested in a video game, you actually have to sit in jail and live the full sentence of your crime. 29 to life, boys! 29 to life!
convincing, and really, it comes down to the reoccurring problem that she doesn't propose any solution. Anita acknowledges these characters are used to create an environment, yet clearly thinks it isn't unjustified. I understand what she's saying, and some are definitely egregious, but many portray how women are treated in specific time periods or environments. Oftentimes, it's shown in a negative lens in service of a greater theme or point. I don't think not focusing on the horrific reality of women's suffering invalidates that. If you're going to argue this, you have to delve deeper into why it's wrong. Her approach misses the point and doesn't interrogate the subject deeply enough. At the end of the day, I just think Anita doesn't like the idea of violent video games in general. But her making
that makes her female Jack Thompson, though.
Caused a new round of backlash.
The problem was that no one who played the game does that. Trust me, I watched at least 40 playthroughs and none of them attacked the dancers. Because in Hitman, you're not meant to kill innocent people. Indeed, you get penalized for it.
This is around the same time when Jordan Owen and fellow men's rights activist Davis Arini began crowdfunding a documentary to take her down, called The Sarkeesian Effect. They launched a Patreon which quickly netted them $9 grand a month. And yes, the irony of people complaining Anita got too much money for what amounted to a YouTube video is not lost on me.
Yeah, but that becomes moot. You made what's good for the goose good for the gander. So your criticism rings hollow at that point. She is creating video series based on the objectivity to complain about nothing, and then presenting it like she has just given you the cure to fucking cancer, and AIDS, and also race rioting, and problems of our time. Which, when you really think about it at the base level of it, is paying and being paid, and then paying, liaisoning the effort of others to explain why sexism in gaming is the greatest problem. But you can't be bothered to do the effort yourself as a passion project, to the point that your passion project can't get fucking done, said the man who still needs to finish multiple passion projects. The point remains. I'm not asking people to give me 20K so I can be able to open a website, which is something that Anita has done over other projects, not related to this, but to other things, specifically her podcast. And it is what makes people look at her and say, grifter. It's what makes people sit there to say, what do you do? What are you here for? Because it can't be for good shit. Because where the point at? Where the game's at? Where the production at? Any person who looks at them saying, how can you criticize her when you're doing it too? We're going to look at you like, are you serious? And most of them are serious. They believe they're equal. And they are not. And that is crazy. But I digress.
But we'll get back to the Sarkeesian effect a little later on. On August 16, 2014, game developer Zoe Quinn's ex-boyfriend published an online expose detailing
Why did you remove his name from that, gamer?
He accused Zoe of cheating on him with 5 guys in the industry. This would spark the hashtag Gamergate, which was a harassment.
No, it inspired Quinspiracy, which eventually led to Gamergate. But what it actually started off with was 5 guys, burgers, and fries. Small nitpick, but this is very important. The timeline is actually the most consistent thing.
Harassment campaign against women in gaming, or an online movement meant to address ethics in video game journalism, depending on who you ask.
Well, if I fuck somebody to give me and mine a opportunity to make money, and I am granted that position specifically because of those behind-the-scene deals, yes, that is a problem of ethics and coverage. Yeah. Because at that point, if I choose to then become a muckraker, and I only ever look into certain political sides and certain political positions and certain political rivals that rival those that gave me my leg up, I'm very clearly a bought and paid for shill. No different than any other news media journalist. Which means my reporting is to be ignored. Because I can be bought and sold. Yes, that does matter. It still matters. You need muckrakers to be able to demonstrate the problems in any kind of business. Because there is always going to be corruption. And you should also not be the kind of people that forever has your head pointed towards the ground. Because if all you ever do is rake mud and you never actually, move the mud somewhere, either be repurposed or to be used, in this case the muck is corrupt yellow journalism, you will never be able to truly solve the problems. Which means you all have to have a matter of perspective. And Lord knows, niggas don't in fucking Gamergate did not have perspective.
Major catalysts for this were attempts to limit open discussion of the controversy, including a video by Mundane Matt that got false flagged.
What you're looking at is a copyright claim against a YouTube user by the name of Mundane Matt on a video called Hell Hath No Fury Like a Lover Scorned. That copyright claim was filed by Zoe Quinn.
Although Anita wasn't originally involved in this mess, her appearance was somewhat inevitable. In previous blogs, she criticized several platforms for their lack of adequate report systems. This became a talking point, with outlets calling on Twitter to fix this free speech problem. It eventually led to a petition for Twitter to add a report abuse button, which received over 130,000 signatures, yet didn't succeed until what happened next. On August 26, a sock account was created named Kevin Dobson. The user tweeted graphic assault fantasies at Anita, before sharing her address and threatening her life. The feminist alerted authorities, quickly retreating to a friend's house. The next day, she publicly shared screenshots. This started a firestorm, with headline after headline about how she'd been driven out of her home. It was likely the last straw for Twitter, who added the report function a month later. Now, many of her critics weren't convinced of the validity of this stalker. They felt it was awfully convenient this took place shortly after her latest video.
My problem with it wouldn't be the validity of them happening, but bitch, how the fuck you take this shit seriously? Doesn't mean that she shouldn't get support for it, because no, she is correct actually. You should have useful report functions on the website. But at the same time, you, Anita, should know the internet is not real and you should unplug it. Of course, the person tweeting out your home, that comes down to your cybersecurity protections, but all of this is moot. You should have useful report tool functions. You should. Every platform should. How they are handled and how they are treated, and making sure that they are treated correctly, that is more. Usually, how treating them correctly is the problem. Because ideologues.
Theorized she wrote the threats herself, as they were made seconds before the screenshot was taken. That doesn't make much sense though, given the account posted 3 more after the image. They also criticized her for soliciting donations. While these threats were later attributed to Gamergate, the hashtag didn't exist until August 27th. It was coined by actor Adam Baldwin, who linked to Jim's video. The next day, a wave of articles by the mainstream gaming press were released which declared that gamers were dead. The movement was now in full swing.
I like how you left out the articles, dude. Thank you for noticing that too, Struggler. I like how you left out the sheer veracity of these articles that came from all the leaders of the Waypoint websites. The message was harmonized because of the actions of Zoe, Gwen, and Anita. And then, with the revealed messages of how they were coordinating it ahead of time, is what led to One Angry Gamer, who was a part of those conversations, exposing everything. White macadamia.
Polarizing conversations around Anita further. The industry took her side, with 1,000 devs signing an open letter to end intolerance in gaming. How a petition could change that, I still don't know. Then her story...
It's not supposed to. It's just supposed to show soy solidarity.
...hit the actual mainstream, enraging critics further.
Dear mainstream media, I can't but help find it ironic that you are rushing to the aid of a damsel in distress when that very same damsel has pointed out again and again how sexist it is to rescue damsels like this.
2 days later, a user spammed her with CP, which led her to once again bring up Twitter's poor mechanisms. Thunderfoot uploaded 3 more videos about her that month, including Anita Sarkeesian and the bitchy tweets. This one argued, is it sexist to call someone who is being a bitch a bitch?
Well, that link is no surprise to her Tumblr account, and if you take a look, you'll see a bunch of screen caps of tweets of people who really don't like Anita. Almost 50 of them. Well, like I was saying, that kind of happens when you lie to people's faces.
This is also when Republicans started taking interest. Milo Yiannopoulos published his first article.
Milo is not a Republican.
In support of Gamergate, and Christina Hoff Sommers mocked Anita for the American Enterprise Institute. It wasn't
debatable on Christina Hoff Sommers, but she is probably one of the many people that has a stake in the game of the political discussions, demonstrating what is very important to be mentioned, which was the need of the female voice to push back against this. But of course, honey badgers are not coming into... They don't come into focus here. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Long until the creator of Beat Up Sarkeesian joined the cause. Of course, adding fuel to the fire was her new phrase, listen and believe.
So I leave you with one simple thought. One of the most radical things you can do is to actually believe women when they tell you about their experiences.
In context, it was about victim blaming, but something about the phrase felt draconian. It quickly became the basis for memes criticizing the lack of open discussion surrounding Gamergate. With their crosshairs on the press, the Gamergate movement started targeting advertisers. They managed to get Intel to drop Gamasutra, although the technology company reversed and issued an apology later. Milo tried to refute Anita by emailing San Francisco police alleging she never filed a report. He retracted this after learning it was handled by the FBI. Gamergate eventually reached NPR, resulting in her first tweet about the hashtag. Even with the uncertainty, she was still scheduled for several venues. That included Utah State University on October 15th, but the event was canceled a day prior after a very detailed bomb threat. The email vowed revenge, threatening the deadliest school shooting in American history. While police quickly determined there was no risk to students, she raised concerns over the state's concealed carry laws. It once again stirred a media frenzy, with the New York Times attributing it to Gamergate. She later wrote an op-ed for the outlet, only propelling her deeper into the mainstream, appearing on MSNBC and The Colbert Report.
Do I speak for all gamers when I say the media should stop talking to critics like Anita Sarkeesian? Here now to be talked to is media critic and creator of the web series Feminist Frequency, Anita Sarkeesian.
She was even invited to the International Symposium of Digital Ethics. With Anita at the forefront, everyone began talking about her. Thunderfoot alone uploaded 7 more videos about Anita before the end of the year. TJ Kirk, among many, argued threats like this weren't uncommon online, and most aren't a legitimate danger. This is really when terms like professional victim became popular, it accused people of playing up their own misfortune for profit. It wasn't long until opponents adopted this tactic, which Milo refined into the campus outrage cycle. This would be when him and other online right-wing figures would go to college campuses, feminists would try to shut it down, and they would cry that they're being silenced. Many Gamergaters were irritated.
Well, because you guys were indeed silencing them. I say you guys, you're not involved in this, Gamer of Mars, but you were doing so. That was something that you did, yes. You did those things. If you did those things, then you have to take your L. Sorry. That's how that works.
Enough to identify her harassers themselves. Their efforts were successful enough to get credit from Kotaku even. By this point, discussions surrounding Anita Sarkeesian overshadowed anything related to her actual videos, and theories of Macintosh being the brains of the operation continued to circulate. This intensified after Feminist Frequency uploaded 25 invisible benefits of gaming while male. The video created by Macintosh was made with 25 other men, including Tim Schafer and Adam Sessler. It wasn't long until his surname became synonymous with the archetype of a male feminist. The hashtag #FullMacintosh was coined to mock them, which two male feminists tried to reclaim in song form, very poorly. While very few on YouTube of note were supportive of Anita, one would make waves by lampooning her critics. That creator was none other than HBomberGuy, whose first video ever ridiculed the duo behind the Sarkeesian effect.
She's a professional victim, I tell you. She fled her home and she's a professional. Those things are technically accurate, goddammit. $15,000. I can't wait to be told what to think by this guy. I mean, he has such amazing thoughts about ethnic minorities.
You should be absolutely furious with the niggers. Not the blacks, the fucking.
On November 6, Twitter partnered with Women Action.
But what if I was to say he was base? I'm joking. No, I'm not. They're the upset of those that are the most derogatory amongst the races are going to always reflect as a problem. But for blacks, the ignorant and the belligerent are probably some of the most superfluous, but surprisingly, the most ignorant and superfluous in this generation of outspoken individuals tends to be those that have YouTube channels. Like Steak and Fire. And the Mighty Keith. And the majority of BreadTube. And Cornbread Tube. And the demagogues that they have there. Cooking, but is it blackened? No.
And the media to collect data on harassment. This led to several changes, like making it so blocked users can't view your profile. As if to make up for the sheer amount of online criticism, there was an influx of positive coverage. Bloomberg published a puff piece about Anita, calling her gaming's greatest adversary. Polygon named her one of gaming's most important figures. A month later, she was interviewed by ABC about Gamergate alongside Brianna Wu.
Violent depictions of women being beaten, raped, and run over by cars. It's not the movies, it's video games. And now the women calling for change in this multi-billion-dollar virtual industry are facing a very real backlash, including death threats.
Then, after originally pulling sponsorships, Intel announced a partnership with Feminist Frequency as part of its new $300 million diversity initiative. The indie game Towerfall paid tribute with a character loosely based on Anita. It was made by the same team behind Celeste. If things couldn't get weirder, Law & Order produced an entire episode about Gamergate called Intimidation Game.
They were leveling up.
They leveled up.
The plot parallels her harassment with edits of a Sarkeesian stand-in being brutalized. It also strangely has a character played by a young Logan Paul for some reason. The episode was widely ridiculed, quickly becoming a meme in and of itself. Even Anita didn't like it. Predictably,
I imagine not.
Law & Order
I imagine not.
They trivialized and exploited real-life abuse of women in gaming for entertainment. I really have no idea what the writers of this TV show were even going for. That February...
Because they're out of touch. Gamers of Mars. Because they're out of touch.
Users noticed a peculiar tweet from Feminist Frequency. The text was identical to something Macintosh said in 2012. Interestingly, it was also quoted without attribution by Anita in one of her videos.
I've heard it said that in the game of patriarchy, women are not the opposing team, they are the ball.
For many, this cemented Macintosh as the puppet master, with a detailed video compiling the evidence. This critique showed even more examples of Macintosh saying something and Anita parroting it shortly after. It also showed some clear hypocrisies. In the past, Thunderfoot criticized the duo for calling Christopher Hitchens a racist warmonger 2 days after he died. Then after the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attack, Macintosh said this: "I don't use my free speech to mock and deride the most marginalized and vulnerable in society like Charlie Hebdo." That was while refusing to celebrate the death of Osama bin Laden. I'm not going to celebrate the killing of any human being, regardless of how reprehensible they might have been. Even people against Gamergate felt they needed to be upfront about their distinctive roles. On the other side, things were falling apart for the Sarkeesian effect. This led to a new video by HBomberGuy, which garnered over 1 million views.
It's so unexpected that someone wouldn't want to get along with someone who says things like this.
You're a
Even Feminist Frequency's most ardent critics turned against the Sarkeesian effect, with Thunderfoot calling it a reality-bending fail. It was hard not to, given how bizarre some of their criticisms were.
They haven't said anything about it, but you might also notice that she's learned to smile like a white person. If you look
that's a big wide mouth grin?
Yeah, if you look at her...
Oh no, don't!
Meanwhile, Anita started a series about positive female characters in video games. That year, she was included in Time's 100 Most Influential People by Will Wheaton. Milo instigated, offering a $10,000 donation to charity if she debated him. He then made a quiz challenging readers to guess if quotes were from Anita or the disbarred lawyer Jack Thompson, known for going after gaming in the 2000s. The comparison rang true after Anita and Macintosh criticized Doom 2016 for being too violent. We just saw a packed auditorium full of adults cheering at seeing bodies cut in half with a chainsaw. Really think about that for a moment. Think about it without getting defensive. No one wants to ban Doom, but what message does that send to the world about the gaming community?
It sends the message that they want to play fucking Doom, Macintosh!
Jason Martin, an employee at id Software, mocked them on Facebook. This resulted in attempts to get him fired. The next day, anti-feminist Frequency posters appeared around E3. They were quickly losing charitability, with some of their takes going beyond parody. That didn't stop John Oliver from referencing her treatment by police.
Listen to how these women were treated when they spoke out against what they saw as sexism in the video game industry.
In July, Jack Thompson himself was asked about Anita in an interview. She's not a warrior on the issue. She's a self-promoter, and I think everyone has pretty much figured that out. Also, she needs to stop whining about how badly treated she has been by the industry. When she gets the front window of her house shot at like I did, then I'll listen to her whining a bit more. Pioneers take the arrows, honey. Deal with it. What's crazy is that even though people criticized Anita by comparing her to Thompson, I remember people siding with him purely out of spite here. Fun fact, I actually made 2 videos about Anita back in 2015 when all this was going on. One was about the reasons people liked her, and the other was about why people hated her. The first got 80,000 views and a slew of dislikes, while the second has amassed almost 1 million with glowing praise. It just goes to show that people were just picking sides at this point, and didn't actually care about anything else. The last episode of Season 1 of Tropes vs. Women was uploaded on September 14th. The very next day, the Sarkeesian Effect was released. It first premiered at a Gamergate meetup to exactly 9 people with mass ridicule following. Davis is edited out of the entire film, causing him to release his own cut. Weeks later, Anita and Zoe Quinn were invited to speak in front of the United Nations on cyber harassment against women.
By doing this work, I have been the target for 3 years nonstop of egregious online harassment in all levels. I think it's important to recognize that harassment is as someone had mentioned, it's not just what is legal and illegal, right? Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck, you know, making all of these hate videos to attack us on a regular basis, and the mobs that come from those hate videos, etc.
It was at this point that Gamergate started losing traction, with many of those who rose to prominence coming out of it with a flourishing career. This was the beginning of the skeptics, who all hung out together on Google Hangouts in defiance of the mainstream. That November, Milo accused Anita of faking her followers. Weeks later, she went live on Twitch to play Assassin's Creed. Yiannopoulos' fans rated her chat with the phrase Big Milo.
Harassers have descended. I think we're close.
It was during this stream Jim recognized one of her moderators as a registered sex offender.
Hey, guess who Anita Sarkeesian has as a mod on Twitch?
Oh god.
No. You're gonna love this. A convicted pedophile.
What? Who is it? What?
Yeah. Apparently Valis is a mod on her Twitch stream.
In case there was any doubt, Valis posted this picture of himself after the stream. To all my jealous haters on Twitch and YouTube, you have no power here. It's unclear how this offender became a mod, although footage he submitted to World of Long Plays appeared in Tropes vs. Women. He was subsequently fired, although she never addressed the matter publicly. In December, Macintosh posted a video to Feminist Frequency called 5 Ways Men Can Help End Sexism. He shared outtakes on his own channel, Rebellious Pixels. They were experimenting with other hosts and expanding to general game reviews. They also launched an online harassment safety guide with women action in the media. While Feminist Frequency clearly had big things planned post Gamergate, a breakup would hinder this progress and lead to the company seeing its painful demise. In January 2016, Anita posted an update to her Kickstarter. Tropes vs. Women was coming to an end after its second season. It comprised 8 new episodes in a new format. The first was uploaded that day about strategic butt coverings. Curiously, Macintosh was no longer credited as a writer or producer in any of these videos.
Oh
in an
no,
email
oh
leaked
no,
by
how
BuzzFeed,
horrible!
a former Slate writer claimed they broke up well over a year ago. Macintosh rebranded his channel to Pop Culture Detective. His first video under the pseudonym was posted in July, and not long after, he surpassed all of Feminist Frequency's metrics, now sitting at over 1 million subscribers. Many noticed similarities between his videos and the first season of Tropes vs. Women. In contrast, Season 2 received harsh criticism, even from fans. There was even a thread on an anti-Gamergate subreddit that asked, have Feminist Frequency's takes been getting worse? It was a catch-22 of Anita Sarkeesian's work, yes. You didn't want to flat out condemn her because gator assholes going after her for daring to be a woman talking about video games means you need to support her. And yet the things she says, they aren't things I generally agree with once you get beyond the Feminism 101 stuff. She seems to hold that feminism is synonymous with pacifism, for example, which I utterly disagree with. That February, Twitter launched their Trust and Safety Council, hiring over 40 organizations, including Feminist Frequency. A week later, Anita returned to Santa Monica College to kick off Women's Empowerment Month. In the past, Macintosh mocked the idea of feminist media criticism being a lucrative endeavor, but a campus paper revealed Anita now had a $20,000 speaking fee. The info was removed after
$20,000 speaking fee.
Additionally, using their numbers, it was calculated her org brought in almost $1 million over the past 2 years. This led many to question how it was used, with $40,000 spent fundraising in 2015. It's pretty hard not to lose charitability as time goes on. Anita appeared at several events that month, including Gamer X3, where she said this.
We need to put pressure on them. Right, we need to either make them fear
from my world famous tweet thread
that they're not, you know, that they're not going to sell their game, or they could sell their game more if they did this. That somehow challenging them and making them feel like they have to do this.
It seems apparent that after Macintosh left, the focus of Feminist Frequency became much less about video game analysis and more about soliciting donations, consulting fees, and booking venues. That March, Feminist Frequencies sponsored Crash Override Network, an anti-harassment organization started by Alex Lifshitz and Zoe Quinn. 5 days later, Anita announced she was moving on from gaming with a series about history's overlooked women. It was once again crowdfunded, asking for $200,000. In response, TJ Kirk started raising money for the International Women's Health Coalition. Anita responded by calling him a very vocal and known harasser. Kirk ended up raising over $75,000 for women and girls in third world countries. For a while, the two were neck and neck until Cards Against Humanity creator Max Temkin donated $25,000 to Anita. It turns out they'd been closely associated for 3 years. That May, Neil Druckmann spoke about Anita's influence with a subsidiary of Rolling Stone. He recounted a sexist focus tester that was so upset by their decisions, he left and cursed them out. The French Minister of Digital Affairs also credited Anita as the inspiration for a series of legislative proposals that would introduce tax penalties against games with sexual themes, ignoring the fact that French films are notorious for being sexually explicit. This was thankfully unsuccessful. It was around this time in August of 2016 that over 850,000 lines were leaked from the Crash Override Network Skype group. It proved many of Gamergate's targets were colluding, at least to some degree. That included Ian Miles Chong, who owned up to his involvement and verified they were real. He admitted that, beyond doxing, the group discussed contacting employers to get people fired. There were also threats to sue anyone that supported Gamergate into financial oblivion. While Sarkeesian wasn't present, her then secretary, Catherine Cross, was. They tried to use their connections to get the Sarkeesian effect taken off of Patreon, but were unsuccessful. Funnily enough, a leaked conversation shows members insulting Macintosh, like those bad feminist dudes we were talking about. Speaking over is a great way to put it, in my honest opinion. Macintosh? Him? Yes. I don't like how he does that. A lot. Yeah, I don't follow him. Enough white dudes on my timeline. Brianna Wu criticized Anita's ex publicly for his male privilege. With
the male privilege of being a victim got cheated on?
Year, it's perhaps unsurprising.
What a strange thing to say.
The election of Donald Trump. Anita uploaded 2 videos calling for people to join their cause before asking for donations yet again.
Because of your enthusiastic belief in our work, Feminist Frequency has achieved so much over the past 4 years, but we still need your help. Your contribution at this crucial time ensures that we can keep progressing over the next 4 years.
At the beginning of 2017, the FBI released a 173-page document about its threat investigations during Gamergate. They primarily cover the reports about Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu. While heavily redacted, many documents can be matched to known incidents. That included the threats at GDC and Utah State University. After reading the email for the latter, I can understand why it specifically distressed her. It's worded like a manifesto and references specific massacres. That being said, a lot of the other threats were clearly just trolls. My name is redacted of Gamergate. At this moment, we have over 9,000 bombs that we will use to blow up the TSC auditorium. You done goofed by inviting that feminazi to give a lecture. You're f***ing dead, kiddos. While it was exhaustive, in the end, their investigations petered out. The FBI weren't able to identify any culprits. They declined to prosecute others and struggled with jurisdictional issues. At the very least, it put to rest the idea she wasn't reporting threats, as she did seem concerned for her safety. 2 months later, Anita would end up in a controversy with YouTuber and former Polygon writer Nick Robinson. On March 26th, Nick tweeted, "No offense, but anyone who acts like they don't jack off to Crystal from Star Fox Adventures is lying to you."
Oh, that's a crazy statement. What possessed this man to say that? That's so crazy. And why specifically Crystal? Most gamers are not furries, you know.
Anita responded to this obvious joke by saying, "Nobody in our office feels that way about Crystal. In fact, we find her character deeply disappointing. Here's why. She then linked to the first part of Damsels in Distress. Attitudes like this are indicative of just how male-dominated gamer culture remains. This led the entirety of Twitter to accuse the feminist of shaming him for being a furry. However, a few months later, Nick was called out for being creepy towards women in the industry and begging for nudes. He was suspended by Polygon and the next day fired. The final episode of Tropes vs. Women was uploaded on April 27, 2017. With that, she concluded the series. In her 2012 Kickstarter, Anita promised 12 videos with a specific list of subjects. But if we look at the topics outlined, 4 of the 12 were never made. Now, she did make videos in their place, but they all concern sexualization. It's possible the originals were dropped once Macintosh left the project, but her backers didn't seem to mind. Still, I find it outrageous that people gave her money for a new crowdfunding project while she never actually finished the first one. Shortly after, it was discovered Sarkeesian's dad had an online presence. That's because users found he donated $400 to Donald Trump. It turns out he ran a website criticizing Turkey and its current sitting president. They were apparently no longer on good terms, although this is speculation. Following Tropes vs. Women, Anita started several series including The Freak Show that would receive a fraction of her viewership from a few years prior. Losing her cultural relevance, her critics would soon have a chance to confront the woman that they had mocked for the past half-decade. If you've been paying attention, you may have noticed a specific name missing from the record up until this point. Carl Benjamin, otherwise known as Sargon of Akkad. This jolly British chap was a skeptic that grew prominent amidst Gamergate. While the first videos on his channel predate the movement, they were still about Anita. His coverage ranged from her past in teleseminars to her being a fake gamer. He also started This Week in Stupid, covering whatever crazy SJWs were in the news that week. This resulted in him becoming one of Anita's most popular critics, doing crossovers with Milo, Jim, and Thunderfoot. By early 2017, his channel amassed over 620,000 subscribers. It should be apparent by now that Anita rarely responds to her critics. That made it of particular note when she was scheduled to speak about harassment at a panel at that year's VidCon. While she appeared a year prior, this time
there they are, born to be the chuds. They are the critics of the soy universe.
Around, all the prominent skeptic and commentary YouTubers came together to hang out. This is an era where you would see people like Your Movie Sucks and Maddox standing next to a Kekistani flag held by Chris Raygun, Andy Worski, and Mundane Matt. There was a minor outcry after several breadtubers had an amicable dinner with Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic. But that's all besides the point. The event had several panels about women's representation, with Anita's on June 22nd. It was scheduled at the Press Play stage from 5 to 6 p.m. This is where the anti-SJWs were to attack as her critics claimed
they didn't attack her. That is a lie. I'm gonna let you finish, and then I'm gonna follow behind your ass and wipe your butt.
And to show up early and fill up the first 3 rows, with some even streaming it live. The attendees included Bunty King and of course Sargon, who sat in the very front. Anita noticed this shortly after her intro, with her expression quickly souring. A minute later, she announced a notorious harasser was in the audience filming them.
I could be wrong, but I think there's someone in the front row that is a notorious harasser of mine that's
Well, see, okay. So, this event gets referenced all the fucking time, and everybody's tired of the fucking cap about it. She chose to attack him, not him attacking her. Granted, the way in which you phrased it is what gave me pregnant pause. But I'm delivering the fucking 4th term, 28th term, 86th term abortion myself. She was not attacked. Anybody claiming that Anita was attacked do not understand what happened. She had people show up to see if she was going to basically stand on business. And on that standing of business, they sat in the front because they wanted to see what she had to say. They wanted to be in attendance. They wanted to be in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. And in the room where it happened, Sargon was verbally attacked by her. But she called him, as we all are familiar, the garbage human. Should he be in the front row? knowing that it's going to provoke a reaction from her? Probably not. Is it unfair for him to be in the front row? Absolutely not. It is of note that that is the thing that happened. Namely because everything to do with this event, people talk more about the fact that how dare he do that, rather than why is she doing this, and other such shit. Me personally, find it wild that she was there in the first place, but you know, not that crazy, but crazy enough.
Filming this panel, so I think it's important to keep having these conversations.
They continued talking for the next 7 minutes, motioning in his direction until she decided to call him a garbage human.
If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit.
And it should be most noted that the fact that they're clearing louder for them should have been your clue that maybe I'm the baddie here, but it's okay.
You're a garbage human. Whatever, dude.
The hijinks didn't end there either, with Joey Salad showing up during the Q&A to argue with them about harassment.
Why do you guys act like...
I forgot Salads was there. Salads, what are you up to? Didn't you try to run for office?
only women face harassment online?
Of course, Sargon capitalized on this by changing his name on Twitter to Garbage Human. He then called for
You mean he made jokes about it? At their expense? Because she didn't need to do that?
VidCon to reprimand Anita, accusing her of abuse. Shocking to be harassed by Anita at VidCon just for attending her panel. We'll show it to my 600,000 subs tomorrow. The one time Anita engages with a critic is to bully them. Absolutely no empathy shown towards a victim of abuse. This is exactly the kind of follower Anita attracts VidCon. It quickly made the rounds with many of the skeptics present covering the ordeal. Sargon quickly uploaded his own, directed towards VidCon's founders, Hank and John Green.
I was sat quietly anticipating an interesting discussion, but instead, Sarkeesian decided to use her position of institutional privilege as one of VidCon's featured creators to launch an unprovoked tirade of abuse after singling me out specifically to bully, culminating in her calling me a shithead and a garbage human.
He pointed to the event's code of conduct, arguing her actions constituted harassment.
Because they
He then
did?
goes on to explain his favorite part of the event, meeting his favorite creator, Boogie2988.
Being abused by Anita Sarkeesian was understandably my least favourite part of VidCon so far, compared to the highlight, which was bumping into my favourite content creator, Boogie2988.
He mentioned this because Miss Sarkeesian was set to appear on another panel with Boogie about cyberbullying. He called for people to petition the co-founders over email in order to have her removed.
For this reason, I am formally petitioning VidCon's co-founders, Hank and John Green, to remove Anita Sarkeesian from the cyberbullying panel on Saturday.
The End Cyberbullying panel was scheduled on June 24th. It seemingly went without a hitch, although the comments compared her to having Adolf Hitler on a diversity panel. Anita finally responded 2 days later after the event was over. She argued that, contrary to their stated intentions, they were there to intimidate her and put her on edge. She also said the insult wasn't comparable to his entire online career. This sentiment was echoed by outlets like Polygon and the Mary Sue. That same day, Sargon appeared on Joe Rogan and relayed his side of events. Rogan clearly had no idea who this guy was, as he was only able to get on through connections to other guests.
In fact,
Okay.
have you not heard about this?
No, dude, I'm insulated.
Oh, dude, this is
I live in the
actually
real world.
hilarious,
It's
right?
crazy.
So Anita Sarkeesian, she spots me sitting in the audience, and then she starts freaking out.
Freaking out.
Yeah, she starts saying things like, "There's a constant harasser of mine, calling me, she called me a shithead, she called me a garbage human."
A garbage human?
I did nothing to her.
This is when Sargon admits he's made over 30 videos about the feminists, which clearly takes Rogan aback.
Like, and she's under the impression that all of my videos are about her. And I actually, on the ride over, I got people to like count it up for me. I've made around 30 videos in about 4 years referring to her. And that's a lot. No. It sounds it sounds like a lot, but that's less than 4% of the videos I've made. I've made 780 videos. I work hard.
I'm sure you do, but that's still 30 videos. I don't care if you've made 100 million videos. You still made 30 videos about her.
I don't think that's a large number.
Things only.
Pretty big cap, especially if you try to consider Joe Rogan and try to phrase Joe Rogan's reaction as the reaction of the modern person. Joe Rogan could quite literally have anybody on his podcast. He could even have somebody like me on his podcast, recounting and talking and regaling him about whatever the fuck topic he wants to talk about. But the fact of the matter is that 30 videos in a history of 700 or even 7,000, you cannot say, bro, you still made 30 videos. You were still stuck on, you were butt frustrated, agitated for 30 videos. If I could talk about, hey, she wrote this letter and this letter is cringe. To then equate that and equivocate that to, well, her reaction is justified is fucking crazy. No matter who you are. The logic works out the same way for anybody. After he stretch, otherwise my knees lock up. It's ridiculous, and any kind of example to compare that basically means, okay, no one's allowed to talk about anybody, because anybody can be seen as coping and seething. This, of course, is not how it works in commentary, and you would be laughed out of the room for even insisting that it should. But no, I don't see why you included that other than for the purpose to say that it happened, but, you know, I'll let that slide, gamer.
Intensified a day later when Boogie uploaded his side of meeting Sarkeesian at the event. It's hard to imagine now, given his crypto scams, lying about cancer and face tattoos, but Boogie was viewed as the Mr. Rogers of the internet at the time. This is very important context for what happens next. Boogie explains he was so afraid of upsetting Anita, he spent 6 weeks preparing, rehearsing his statements, and even verifying them with other panelists and organizers. While the event went mostly well, she supposedly took issue with his closing statements.
And I said that I wanted to remind everybody in the audience that I am a person of privilege as a white cis male. And then I went over the types of attacks that have happened to me again with the assassins and the boxes of feces and all of that kind of stuff. And then just try to remind the audience that if, you know, whoever you are, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And then try to remind everybody that this isn't a matter of identity politics. This is a human rights issue.
That apparently set her off, leading Anita to confront him afterward.
I'm shaking, very, very nervous, but I felt like it went well. And when I get off of the stage at the bottom of the panels, there's Anita, and she seemed to be very, very upset. And I don't remember exactly what she said. I'm paraphrasing here, but she said in a very upset that I think it was very fucking uncool that you said what you said there at the end, knowing that no one else would have enough time to respond. And I bet you can imagine how that affected my anxiety, because the exact focal point of my anxiety for the entire weekend, in fact, for the last 6 weeks, the nightmare scenario that I was terrified of actually had come true. I had upset somebody who I very, very much had tried to not upset and did not want to upset.
Now, this isn't where the video ends. Boogie goes on to explain she calmed down and they had a civil conversation in the green room. This led him to receive mass dislikes, with many accusing him of defending a bully. The incident would end up sparking an entirely new wave of backlash, with known domestic abuser I'm Alex calling her out for berating the nicest—
Now, we only learned he was a domestic abuser in this timeline, not back— No, we're not gonna take away the rights of what was had. He was a media darling at the time, because it was along with him and Bionic Pig from Hot Wet Soup that he would finally start getting controversy, because him and Bionic and all the others had done what they had done to one of their cast members. No. I remember. So you don't have to.
man on the internet. It's worth pointing out, Boogie would give a much different recount of events to the skeptics later on.
I mean, nobody cried. She shoved her fucking finger in my fucking face and wagged that shit. She's like, I don't fucking appreciate what you fucking said up there knowing I didn't have a fucking time to fucking respond. And I'm like, lady, I have an anxiety disorder, so I recommend you walk away right now, and we can talk in a few minutes. Because I don't want to depersonalize and say or do anything that's going to get either of us kicked out of VidCon. She's like, I didn't know about your anxiety disorder. I'm like, well, now you do, so give me some fucking space.
Even amidst this outrage, VidCon ultimately apologized to Anita in a statement for subjecting her to a hostile environment. Hank Green clarified prior to the outrage he had no idea who any of these creators were. The decision was so unpopular, Philip DeFranco called it ridiculous.
What is the point of having a policy in place when people break that policy and the net result is you apologize to them?
While understandable that Anita wasn't disciplined, it does come across as bizarre that such a large event had to say sorry because she chose to get in a fight with people in the audience, even if they were smugly staring at her. By July, Sargon had uploaded 9 videos about Anita since VidCon. He was milking it for all it was worth.
Absolutely! Yes, sir! Absolutely! Absolutely! She's lost her shit, so he took advantage of the shit flinging. Caught it in the bucket and said, hey, look at all this shit she threw at me. Yes, sir! Absolutely! Help seethe! What do you mean? What do you mean? If the roles were reversed, you would justify it yourselves. Cap! Cap. Cap. Cap.
Patreon began investigating his account. He would end up getting banned off the platform in late 2018, with staff directly citing the VidCon incident. The convention issued another apology that year, stating they'd be adding more security to panels that might get out of hand. Following the VidCon fallout, there were several minor controversies surrounding Anita. On July 20th, 2017, she streamed Dream Daddy, a gay dating sim by the game Grummz. This led many to criticize her for objectifying men. The late Total Biscuit garnered a negative reputation in many circles for not condemning Gamergate. He also criticized Anita publicly on several occasions. This resulted in backlash when he was interviewed by Kotaku, including a direct complaint from Anita herself. Outrageous and irresponsible of Kotaku UK to post this puff piece on a Gamergater on the hate movement's anniversary. The writer Rich Stanton issued a public apology and deleted the article. Funnily enough, users uncovered a tweet from 2015 where Stanton admitted, biggest irony in games, Gamergate made Sarkeesian's videos untouchable. They're poor and often inaccurate. Will I criticize them? Not a chance. The first upload to Feminist Frequency after VidCon was on August 30th. It was also the start of the channel uploading a bunch of lazy podcasts, which caused views to plummet below 1,000 per episode. Undeterred, Anita announced a new book called History vs. Women and got invited to the week-long Joko cruise. She then once again asked for donations in a YouTube video. While her series about gaming had ended, her work in the industry hadn't. In February of 2018, she was given a tour of BioWare's Edmonton office. Rumors circulated that many devs were upset with her visit. A month later, Trump blamed violent video games in the wake of the Parkland shooting. Anita criticized him for using the genre as a scapegoat. This led many to accuse her of hypocrisy, although I should reiterate she never actually said video games cause sexism or violence. In May, Feminist Frequency ran a spring fundraiser with one goal being a public Discord server. It was set at the absurd milestone of $25,000, but they would end up succeeding, collecting over $31K. Bizarrely, a month later, she complained about the scene's lack of ethics, blaming pro-Gamergate journalists. It was around this time she mocked Mundane Matt for trying to contact director Ryan Johnson about the movement. This misogynist fool was harassing and stalking me years before the hashtag Gamergate was ever dreamt up by a douchebag D-list celebrity. In August, Anita was invited to the tabletop convention Gen Con as a guest of honor. The event was also attended by Jeremy Hambley, better known as the Quartering. Hambley would end up getting sucker punched, with the attacker identified as one of her fans. Real talk, if you have a problem with Anita being invited to Gen Con, f***ing fight me. I'm easy to find. The perpetrator, named Matt Lauder, was sued and eventually apologized. With visits to BioWare, Naughty Dog, and Arcane, Feminist Frequency's influence at this point was undeniable. Well, the formerly mentioned Hambley obtained and later released Ubisoft leaks that showed direct mention of her series. If that wasn't enough, her videos appeared at an exhibit in the V&A Museum of London. In early 2019, she participated in the hashtag #SaferGDC. Her thread calls out male allies that were often predatory or abusive themselves. Shortly after, she launched herself as the head of a team of paid consultants. Then she called out EA for donating millions to other nonprofits. Sorry, what? EA is donating $1 million to nonprofits working to end bullying and online harassment? They didn't speak up during Gamergate at all. Feminist Frequency has been a nonprofit on the front lines of this issue for years, constantly struggling with funding. Those of us who were canaries in the coal mine, who sacrificed to make sure people recognize this dire problem, we are not remembered when it's politically safe to speak up.
A blue, 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 blue. Because you attack CD Projekt Red, we all don't care.
Anita also tried to desperately land a consulting gig on Cyberpunk 2077. It was also around this time she began collecting data in order to expose gaming's most toxic trends. This materialized in an article for Wired analyzing the number of games with female protagonists at E3. There appeared to be another media push for her around this time, with Polygon running a feature interview called The Anita Sarkeesian Story. This article was her mulling over her poor metrics. After some digging, users discovered Feminist Frequency started 2019 with only $30,000. Their costs for 2018 were $300,000. The org was going bankrupt, with longtime co-writer Carolyn Petit no longer taking salary. At the end of the year, Feminist Frequency asked for money to start a harassment support hotline. They raised $25,000, with the concept becoming the Games and Online Harassment Hotline. Hambly tried out the number by jokingly reporting Keemstar, finding it was mostly bot responses. The service didn't officially launch, however, until August. Throughout 2020, Duke University's Kenan Institute for Ethics published several interviews as part of its Ethics and Now series. They spoke with Sarkeesian, who criticized YouTube's political rabbit holes, specifically naming Joe Rogan. She called him extremely dangerous, becoming one of many voices criticizing his podcast at the time. This was also around when details of The Last of Us Part 2 leaked, sparking massive backlash. Many speculated Anita's involvement, although Druckmann denied the rumor. If you'll recall, Max Temkin, the creator of Cards Against Humanity, was once close with Anita. This association shattered after accusations of both rape and workplace abuse. On June 9th, she publicly severed ties while admitting she had been complicit. Because of this, she tried her best to platform the accuser's stories while explaining their confrontation. In November of 2019, I confronted Max about the rape allegations and told him that I was being a hypocrite by associating with him, and not living by my feminist principles by continuing the friendship. I was told that if he genuinely wanted to work towards repairing the harm he caused, I would try to help. Otherwise, he could no longer be acquainted. Max told me that he wanted to do whatever he could to keep our relationship intact. I urged him to take a couple of days to reflect and then to get back to me so that we could make a plan. I never heard from him again. Instead, he unfollowed and blocked me on social media. While fluff pieces continued to appear for Anita and her projects, her relevance had long since faded. In late 2022, she announced an original series for Nebula called That Time When. It didn't receive any attention, although the last episode...
I swear to shit, Nebula just seems to be where all the fucking bread tubers and grifters go to try and make money, to create content that is ultimately only watched by people who can be able to afford either the free membership or have enough money to float it so they can say, guys, please support my projects. See them earlier before they hit the platform, before they're molested by the chuds criticizing me. Very much seems to be that case with pretty much every single person in BreadTube around the clique that is associated with Lindsay Ellis. Just obvious observation that anybody should be able to make.
Discusses Gamergate.
That was also just a few months before I launched a Kickstarter to create a series of videos examining sexist patterns in video games, which definitely attracted the attention of those defenders of gaming. The term harassment is a massive understatement for the sort of unrelenting vitriolic abuse directed at me in response. But I don't want to revisit that trauma. So, you know, just Google it if you don't believe me.
Finally, on August 1st, 2023, Feminist Frequency announced it was officially shutting down. She was going to take a break, with the organization gradually ceasing operations until early 2024. It truly marked the end of an era, having been around for nearly 15 years. The industry and the internet as a whole changed a lot since she started the series. Looking back now, her videos weren't that crazy, especially given the eventual wave of breadtubers we see today. If a series like her existed in 2024, I don't think it would have received nearly the same level of backlash or promotion either. Of course, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Just last year, Anita held a wedding-themed 40th birthday party.
And that was cringe as fuck. Nobody knows why she did that.
To mock her for being unmarried and childless. In conclusion,
I wouldn't say that it'd just mock her for being unmarried and childless. I think they'd be mocking her for the fact that she's so down on herself that one of the many things that she had to her credibility was, one, only ever watching shit made by certain kinds of creators, which you mentioned earlier, and two, in doing so, one of the things she loves, and I mean she loves, was Charmed. And when they made the blackened reboot of Charmed, she was fucking mad. Because all the things that were criticisms of gaming and criticisms of writing conventions and fiction, all of them were in Charmed. She didn't like the fact that her personal favorite thing was fucked with. And everybody laughed. We laughed heartily. Why? Not just to make fun of her. That was part of it. It was that the criticisms were good, were just, devout, needed to be pushed, needed to be spoken, needed to be heard, until they affected her shit. Then she was a coping and a seething and a crying and a molding, just like everybody else she had fucked with shit from. And how many of the ideologues that followed behind her, not even always herself, but the ideologues that followed behind her and did the same thing. She was more than happy to fucking laugh it and yuck it the fuck up. But when the goose was good for the gander, she said, no, don't cook my goose. And unfortunately to that I say, no, I don't give a shit. Don't feel too good, do it. Which is why all of her work amounts to nothing and has no true benefit to its existence. You didn't make things better. You only made shit worse. You made it the worst that it could be by insisting that you needed to be handed levers of power. And you continue to use those levers. Worse, your mission is now carried forward in the hands of David Bedard and... itchy leg. In the hands of David Bedard and in the hands... oh my god, my nose. Nose bleeding? 1 second. No, I just got a weird amount of nasal drip instantly at that moment. Carried over in the hands of David Bedard, Amy Lee Shaw, itchy ear, Grant K. Roberts, and all associated members of Sweet Baby Inc., including your new black sister. Because, boy, all of the talking points that exist towards Anita's points were definitely made clear in hers. You really honestly just could call her the friendly cousin of Zoe Quinn and the black sister of Nini Sarkeesian. Giving French people a bad fucking name. Specifically, Frenchies like me. But more specifically, Canadians like you all. If you happen to be Canadian minds, that is. Because there's nothing good about what was done by her keynote speech with representation as joy. Why does that not immediately pull up? Come on. I know I have that in my bookmarks. For some reason it's not. Okay? GDC. Come on, Carl. Type GDC. Thank you. You cannot tell me that the viewpoint that came with that GDC performance was anything close to the shit that you expected to go alongside the problem. Because the issue with Kim Blair is blinking on her middle name. No, I didn't have it written down. Because if I didn't put it in Yaponomics, it's not there. The biggest problem that came with your message being carried forward to Kim Blair and David Bedard and all those who have disseminated from Sweet Baby Inc. because you didn't mention fucking... what is her name now? Last name Kramer. No, the dead name is Felix. Maya. The problem that comes in with Maya Kramer, with your association and your time, which was not mentioned here, in Silverstream Media, which was a part of the many levers that led up to Gamergate 1, is that your viewpoints now have been carried through her, where you making up bullshit that doesn't apply to why things have to fucking change in a theoretical sense in gaming now carries forward to the same thing being done, but the blank check for game development being hung over people's heads to get things across the line, and then hoping to use the ability to hide the association of who works in the company to make it so that consumers can never be able to put their finger on who's responsible for it. So the only way that they can be able to find out if a game is good or not is to buy it and basically eat shit on whether or not it's actually good or not, which is a crime in and of itself. Trickery. Trickery at the highest level. Trickery in the highest level that is bad. He also didn't want the Black Buffy reboot to be done? Yes, because Buffy is something that she loves, and Charmed is something that she loves. And I've seen the Charmed reboot. Thanks for that, Jay. It's garbage! Oh, it's fucking horrible! But the goose can't be good for the gander. The goose cannot be good for the gander. And then you tell me, how can you be angry at what I did? I didn't do anything too bad. It is all fruit from a specific spastic tree. And because the fruit came from that strange tree, we can't cut the tree down. Because now it's enshrined. It's part of the Heritage Foundation. It's just like the guy said. You made her untouchable. Even though she's irrelevant, you made her untouchable. She will go down in history as a part of this gameplay era. And she, alongside Kim Blair and her companies, and any person who's responsible, needing to be drawn in, focus camera. We like high definition Carls around here. You're going to have their names go down in history as a part of why the second gaming crash needed and had to happen and how it came to pass. Because the critical theory leads to this. It's a problem. Now, I understand trying to be even-handed and give I wouldn't say unbiased view, but a full context view of her past as necessary. But it doesn't fucking help to what it ends up causing. Because it only ever causes problems to a degree where the true problem is going to always disappear to the margins. There are tons of stories about Anita that will never be told. Either because the context to prove it has been lost to time, and now because of the failure of the Internet Archive, thanks to Chuck Wendig falling through on appeal, unless somebody's able to appeal it again, and possibly get it to be thrown out, or changed, or altered, we won't have the ability to prove it. Ephemeral. Lost to the wind. Lost to time. Getting away with it scot-free. Being childless and partnerless isn't enough of a punishment. And also is weird because if Francesca Ramsey can find a man, why can't you find a man? That's crazy. Which then brings us to video number 2. I don't think it'd be the last one, but we are about to hit 5, so I guess it will be the last one. And I'll save this one for tomorrow. Yeah, I'll save this one for tomorrow. I'll put this in the lineup, because then it'll be all gaming news, and then we can catch up to what else I potentially missed. Yes, I have like 15 things I need to get done. Oh, would I love to have a second computer. Oh, would I love to have a second computer. Hold on. I am getting a DM from Arthur. I can't type. Oh my god. What's Fur Day, Carl? What is FIR Day? What is FIR Day? What's Fur Day? Is that the day that comes after Arbor Day? Fur Day, where you can go down to your local Kohl's and be able to pick yourself up a good old ficus. Put it right in the corner of your building so you can fucking honk yourself in the corner. Anyways. Arthur Samosky, designer and creator of Soul Ash and Soul Ash 2. Remember, he gave me the keys to this game. He's agreed to an interview with me. I'm answering his DM in the background, which I'm not putting on screen for reasons. But yes, 5 o'clock has come, so as the news ends, so does this stream. But I will be right back in an hour with more Carl and Carl-related accessories. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember to spay and neuter your pets. And remember, always pour the Caraco before the Jack with the sours. And don't forget the fucking ice. I will see you all in like an hour and a half. Goodbye, chat. I need to pee.